Constellation, Last Stand Media's conversational podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our podcast network, head to patreon.com/laststandmedia.
Hi, guys. Oh, yeah. Welcome back to Constellation, LSM's conversational podcast. Hope you're ready to shoot the shit. I'm your host, the king of commuting, the ruler of the rat race, but don't worry, he doesn't ride the train on Fridays. Dagan, working 9 to 5. What a way to make a living, Moriarty. And I'm here today with a who's who of social media influencers. It makes me uncomfortable too. Let's start with my brother. He's catching up to me in age. The Megatron. To my Starscream. He doesn't know Transformers. He won't get that code or what it means. Colin Moriarty, everybody.
I get it a little bit, and I get it enough to know who Megatron and Starscream are. I mean, it's like the original.
I'm not giving you enough credit.
Yeah, but no, fair enough. I'm not crazy about Transformers. I think a lot of it is I never cared about cars, you know, and like it's like I don't know, it's the thing turns from a truck into a I don't give a fuck. Just give me the robot. Give me the campy Mega Man robot any day. There was a really, I mean, it was obviously fake because it was on April 1st, but someone was circulating amiibo of all of the Mega Man enemies. Did you guys see this of all the robots? I'm like, dude, these are so good. I would buy every single one for $20 a piece or whatever across 11 games. They were just so good. But here's 2 comments.
Okay.
Well, comment and a question. First of all, comment. Notice that Brad's wearing a blanket like FDR in his wheelchair. Is that true or is that false?
That's true.
Okay.
But imagine if FDR used that blanket. Brad, show it. I saw what it was.
It's an Elden Ring blanket.
Oh, an Elden Ring blanket.
The Elden Ring.
That would be so awesome if you... Chris was really going off on the recent episode of Sacred Symbols with his Trump impression, talking about video games. It was so funny. We can get FDR involved in there too. And then the second, there's like a 1A about Brad, which is that I saw the Star Wars shirt and I was like, well, that's... I was like, oh, Return of the Jedi shirt. But then I'm like, no, the Jedi's too high and too prominent. Is that a Last Jedi shirt? And then I got really upset. And now I'm kind of in the middle because it's a Jedi Fallen Order shirt. And I'm like, whatever.
Dude, much better. Much better than Last Jedi, Colin. Come on.
Yeah, it doesn't take much, but you're
right. Come on, dude.
And then finally, Dagan, I have a question for you. How's everything going? How's your first week back in the office? First time in years, I think, going back to the office.
It was interesting, but I wasn't going to start with this, but we were just talking, we had an earthquake in the area this morning. And I'm not downtown in Philly. You know, I'm working downtown in Center City again, in like the biggest skyscraper in the city. One of the biggest skyscrapers in the country. I'm so glad I'm not in that building today. Now, it didn't affect anything, obviously, physically, thank God. It wasn't a Taiwan situation. But it would have made me so nervous, especially if I was in the elevator, because I have to deal with my fear of elevators again. You know what I mean? I have to face that at least twice a day. So I'm just happy I'm not downtown.
You wouldn't like San Francisco very much.
That's the thing, though. You know what you're getting on the West Coast. It's not supposed to happen here.
And yet it always surprises you. At least in my opinion, I don't know if Brad feels the same, because I don't know what the tectonics are bad in Orange County too, but I don't know like recently how bad it's been. When I was in San Francisco, we had a few noticeable earthquakes, and one of them was in Napa, and we felt it down there, and it was just one boom, like one like mega shake, and that was it. And everyone was like, it was like in the middle of the night, everyone was like, what the fuck? And then like a bunch of things fell off like buildings in Napa, and like on like wineries were all fucked up just on this one massive shake. Like that was all it was one shake. But Dig, you would have been really nervous when I was in Japan once there was an earthquake and I was in the Square Enix building playing Final Fantasy Type 0. I think it's Type 0. I don't think it's Type 0. And no one gave a fuck except for me that it was happening. I'm like at a kiosk on like the 17th floor of their building. They have a beautiful building in Tokyo. And it's just like, and there's like a warning woman on the thing and stuff, and no one cares. Like everyone's just like going about their business. I'm like, are we going to like,
that's insane.
And they're like, oh no, it's fine. It's not a big one.
It's part of their cult. Now, was it the type of thing where things were getting flown off the shelves and everything like that? It wasn't that bad.
I think it ended up being like a 5 something or whatever. And it was,
it was almost 5, right? It was 4.8, the one we had here today, but nothing, again, it didn't that we know of affect anything physically, but it lasted about 10 seconds. So it was enough where you're just looking around like, what the, Like the confusion of it. You know, the dog, I'm in the kitchen fixing the dog's breakfast, actually. She's looking at me like, what, after a couple of seconds, like, what the hell's going on? And then it escalated. It was long enough where she went from confusion to just barking, like aggression, like, what the fuck? Like, I have to defend whatever's happening here. It felt like a truck drove into the house and it was like the aftermath, you know, type of a thing.
You will rebuild.
But but work is good, you know, just adjust. It's been 4 years since I commuted. So for the aggravation and sort of all that kind of stuff to set in, I guess it's going to take time. Right now, it just feels like something new, you know, something different. But thank you for asking, man. I appreciate that.
No problem. I was just curious how your week was.
Yeah, thank you, dude. And you know, we'll stay with next a small drum roll, please. He's worth it. Last Stand Media's newest recruit, still hiding his intense feelings of deep regret. He's too polite to admit he made a terrible mistake. Yeah. Also, now I know he's a lot taller than you think. Let's give him a hand, Mr. Brad Ellis. Everybody.
Hello. I regret nothing. I have zero regrets.
See how polite
For
he is?
now.
For now.
Give it time.
Give it time.
For now.
Yeah,
Yeah. For now. But yeah,
that's fair enough.
I'm good, man. It was raining here today too, actually. It was a little cloudy. I was a little chilly. That's why I got the FDR blanket on, getting nice and cozy. But the sun's coming out, Dagan. And it's funny you bring up earthquakes. I haven't felt an earthquake in so long. I guess I'm just used to it. I used to sleep through them all the time. So I haven't felt one. Like, I never noticed them whenever they happen. It's weird.
That's such a weird, for me, it's earthquakes and tornadoes that are a weird thing. Like, I can't wrap my head around getting accustomed to those two things. Like, getting sucked into the sky and getting pulled down into the earth are two of the most horrifying eventualities. You know, like hurricanes, even I could understand you batten down the hatches. But those two disasters, but again, we're just not, you guys are just used to it out there. Kind of comes with the territory, right?
Yeah, it's just normal. I think a tornado is more intense though, Dane, because you can see it. It's like a menacing force of nature just on coming down the horizon.
Yeah,
earthquake,
I can understand that.
Just happens, and it's usually pretty quick. Usually,
yeah, and it looks frightening. But the other thing, the earthquake is like the ninja of natural disasters. That's what makes it. It's like the monster hiding under the bed. You don't know when that thing's going to come out.
Yeah, they're obsessively trying to figure out how to predict them, and I think they're doing better, right? Like, I don't know if Brad remembers or knows any of this being in California, but I'm pretty sure like the California earthquake warning system will warn you now, like maybe a minute or a minute and a half before the earthquake actually happens, which is kind of crazy because the earthquakes send out different signals, like alpha signals and all these kinds of things that move fast. Like there's a break and then move really fast and then everything starts happening. So they're able to like detect that. And there were when I used to go to San Mateo State Park in Northern California, there was like a huge thing there that would like read them, like read those like waves or whatever. So it is pretty cool. Tornadoes are way more destructive, I think. Locally, they can obliterate entire towns. I mean, we see that in the middle of the United States every year, basically.
Unbelievable.
So I would always imagine being a Plains Indian. I've thought about this many times. Being a Plains Indian like 500 years ago. And like, what the fuck is that? Like anytime these huge black clouds roll in, it's like, oh, there could be this catastrophic. No wonder they were nomads. You know?
I never thought of that before. Like, where did they go? Did they have a cave?
Maybe
that was their bomb shelter.
I assume they got thrown around like rag dolls is what I assume happened to them. But you know, you never know. Some medicine man trying to worship it or whatever, he gets sucked in.
Yeah, right. Because what deity is this or whatever?
How can you look at the natural world and not understand? Like people are atheists are so annoying. It's like, how can you look at the natural world and be like, oh, why would you think anything special was happening here? The fucking the funnel cloud from 5 miles up that touches ground and sucks everything around you into it. Oh, that's just a natural phenomenon.
Do you think they first thought like it was a punishment and then started behaving so well that after a while it's like, what are we like the frustration of what are we getting punished for this time?
Dude, that would be a funny ass like comedy about like an Indian tribe that is trying to like, it's not raining or whatever, and they keep doing like everything right to do rain dances ever. It just doesn't happen, and how frustrated they become. Almost like The Office, like, you know, like comedy.
I think we might have something here.
Maybe a little offensive, but not very, you know?
No, not terribly offensive. The only other thing I want to say, and if we have any architects or engineers listening, you guys could weigh in. What I wonder about, I work in 2 big skyscrapers. They're both about 10 years old. They're technically connected, but they're connected underground. They're not really connected above ground. Now, being so new, but being on the East Coast, I wonder if they're built to withstand earthquakes. Now, I can understand San Francisco, you build a new skyscraper. Yeah, you make it be able to sway in an 8.0 Richter scale earthquake, right? But are they doing that here? I don't know. So
do you also know that every decimal is 10 times stronger than the last one?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
An 8.3 is 10 times weaker than an 8.4, which is 10
That's
times weaker than an
insane to
8.5,
me.
and so on and so forth. That hence the
That's when
magnitude,
you
orders
hear.
of magnitude.
It's incredible. Yeah, because the one in Taiwan that they just had was a little under 8, right? And
Yeah.
it was like 7.8 or something. Don't quote me.
Yeah, and if you get to 8, the biggest one I think in American history is an Anchorage earthquake in the 40s that like fucking murdered Anchorage, Alaska, and basically
Oh,
just
they're
sucked
gonna
it into the ground.
Holy shit.
But yeah, no, we should pursue that comedy. That would be funny to do that comedy. Listen, these people running around for 10,000 years around the American continent without inventing the wheel is way more offensive than anything I can say about them. Dagan, back to you.
Listen, he's been silent too long. Next. Last but not least, Colin's son, which kind of makes him my nephew. So,
And I'm going to be a grandfather soon. It's exciting.
oh, you're right. Oh, this changes the whole dynamic. But I was going to say for myself,
Yeah.
I should start telling him inappropriate jokes and buying him whatever he wants. Or maybe I could just be the deadbeat uncle. We'd
sneaking
go
a beer at the picnic, maybe. You know,
Sneaking a
like,
beer
hey,
at
want
the
a sip of
picnic.
this Budweiser. You know,
Shades of don't tell your mom, but I don't want to. When I say that, I don't want to sound like a sexual offender.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's being
sure.
the cool uncle, not
Right.
being the deviant uncle.
Right. The perverted
Right?
one.
Let me make that very clear to everybody.
Right.
But we'll just say one of my 2 favorite LSM nephews, Dustin Furman, ladies and gentlemen.
hello. Thanks for having me here today. We're talking about local phenomenon. We're having a big one here in PA on Monday with the solar eclipse, which has kind of been interesting because I just heard, so an hour and a half north of us in Erie, Pennsylvania, they have already declared a state of emergency because
Really?
that is the primary northmost town that people are going to travel to be in the complete coverage zone. So Holly and I were talking about going up, but I'm just imagining even the madness on any major highway headed north from here.
Yeah.
And I know that the total eclipse is probably very cool and it won't happen again for 40 some years, but
You'll be fine.
yeah, I
Little
think I'm just
Colin
going to
will tell
enjoy
you
it from
about it.
here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Lil Colin. You're right. A little Colin Chris.
Well, yeah, we said Chris Colin, I think was the name.
Chris. Oh, yeah. Chris Colin.
Oh,
We were
okay,
going to name
all right.
the baby Chris Colin, like a hyphen, Chris Colin Dustin Furman.
Oh,
Chris
Mhm.
Colin Dustin Furman.
Right.
I like Colin as the middle name because of the irony, though. Right? Colin has no middle name like myself. So
Mhm.
make the middle name Colin. Oh, but we have already done that in our family.
Yeah.
Haven't we?
Our niece has a middle name is Colin after you
Strike that.
truly.
Strike that.
Oh,
Yeah.
you did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, if it was a girl, it was going to have a middle name of Colin. If it was a boy, it was going to have a middle name of Dagan. And I won.
Mm.
She knew it wasn't going to be a boy. That's why she said that.
Yeah, she just wanted to make you. She just wanted to make you feel good. Well, dude, I mean, talking about the Indians, right? What the fuck did they think that was all? I mean, they probably had a complete meltdown when this shit happened. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
the
sure,
sun is being encapsulated by the moon. Plus, they're all going blind just looking at it. Are you guys making a camera
Yeah.
obscura
So
to go and look at it?
pretty much all not all the stores, but a lot of stores have the glasses that you can buy. And I was watching a video about this last night. Apparently, the problem is that, especially when you're directly mostly eclipsed, is that it feels like you can look at the sun because it's so dim, but you are majorly fucking your eyes when you do that.
yeah.
Even if it feels fine, it's not fine. So
Yeah, because it's an optical illusion. Like the
Right.
sun is still just blasting, and
Yeah.
like your eyes are supposed to like squint and look away when that happens. I looked dead ass. People can look it up. It happened in 1993. I want to say there was a total eclipse, and it went over Maine, and I lived there with our mom that year, and I dead ass looked right at that eclipse with that glass.
Did you really?
Yeah.
and now you can't use PSVR 2, dude.
And
That's
then
what
I
I'm
had
saying.
that's probably the case. And then I had an earth science teacher. So that was 4th grade. I had an earth science teacher in 9th grade where there was another eclipse, like not a partial eclipse. And I said that I had done that. And he's like, oh, you're going to go blind. And then for the next several years, I was like, am I really going to go blind? And then I'm 39 years old. This happened, when I was in 4th grade. I'm like, I think I'm okay now. I mean, I want to knock on wood, but
yeah, but is
Mr.
it from
Nielsen
that, or is it
fucked
from
me up for years because of that. Mr. Nielsen, the earth science teacher.
Was he kidding?
No. Oh, no, that guy,
No.
was that guy kidding? No, that guy wasn't kidding about anything. No, unfortunately. Igneous rocks, he wasn't kidding about that. He wasn't kidding about you going blind. He wasn't kidding about any of those things. And, but I remember, so I've always been fearful of that because I think it has something to do with the rods in your eyes or whatever and how they slowly, but he was saying it should happen 8 to 10 years from that moment. So I was like, oh, it's going to happen when I'm like in high school still. So I'm going to be blind in this fucking high school. You're going to be teaching earth science here and I'm going to hear your dumb fucking voice. The guy who was prescient about me going blind because I looked at an eclipse when I was in 4th grade. So nonetheless, I'm not going to look at it this time. But I was wondering what's different about that. When the sun is on the horizon and you can just dead ass stare at it, and everyone does. It's orange. It's going down. That's also an optical illusion. What is different than that?
Yeah, what intensifies it?
Maybe.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I get it. The moon circumference is like a fucking pin. The sun is like everything. And
Much
it's
bigger,
only
right.
because of your position. It's like a cat hiding from you when it thinks it can't see you, so you can't see it. Right? But really, the sun is still there just blasting radiation.
Right.
And it's just going around the moon, which is not blocking it at all. It's just blocking the optical light of it. So, but I don't understand what's different than looking at the sun on the horizon. I do that all. It's beautiful. Everyone does that.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it has like the atmosphere is blocking out some of it since it's at a different angle. Yeah. But I remember when this happened, I don't know, maybe it was 2017 around then. There was also one around here. And I remember, do you guys remember, like, there's an image where they were filming President Trump and he was like, they were like, don't look at it all day. And then he's like, the leader of the free world is like blatantly looking
it's so
at
good.
So on brand.
Part of me feels like it's overblown, but I don't really know. Because wouldn't we have like a bunch of kids have gone blind from that? But then they also say the ancients knew not to look at it. Like I think Aristotle used to observe it by looking at a reflection in water. Like they somehow knew not to do it. So I don't know. So there must be some fucking blind person in Greece or in ancient Rome that was like, shit, I looked at that eclipse for way too long and now I'm fucking blind.
Maybe that's why all those ancient sages were blind, right? Because they were astronomers and the whole thing, right? Maybe that's
how do they found
the
sunspots hundreds of years ago? It's like, how did you find the sunspots? You were looking at it? Can't be looking at that sunspot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we were watching, there's the YouTuber Hank Green.
Oh yeah.
He did a big thing about it. And he basically, the problem is anytime there's one that goes over large portion, like this one's going all across the United States from like Texas all the way up north, bunch of major cities. And basically in a week's time, there will be many more blind people that just are ignorant. And it happens every time is that there's people that they don't either. I have a hard time believing people don't know at this point. I think it's purely just I don't care. It looks fine. Oh, it's fine. I'm going to look at it. Fuck the news and fake news. And then we're going to have a lot more blind people. And it just predictably happens every time. Happens to a lot of people. So
that's insane, dude.
That's so
like
interesting.
I understand defiance, but defiance with fucking with your eyesight, potentially losing your eyesight.
Dude, I would freak out. That would be
insane.
if we have major advantages having seen in our lives. But that also makes it difficult to go and be like people that are born blind. I imagine it's really all like where you have to even imagine what things look like or what a color is and stuff like that, which is so fascinating to think about. I dated a girl, my ex, you knew her, we went to high school together actually. And her mom went blind slowly. And by the time I was dating her was like almost nearly blind and then went fully blind. She had macular degeneration or whatever. And she like didn't handle it well. And I don't blame you. She got really depressed and insular and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, like they got her like a seeing eye dog and like did all this stuff. They ended up fucking the seeing eye dog up, not physically, but like by giving it so much affection, they basically just made it like their dog. And like even when you have one, like you're supposed to just do very specific things with it, and they basically just broke it, kind of.
Yeah, because it's got to work.
Yeah, and
a working dog.
I always felt she was a really sweet woman, and I always really felt bad for her because it was like, man, she was like a nurse and stuff like that. It's like, must be horrible.
Oh wow, dude,
I feel like we're so close to fixing it. I really do. Like, I feel like we are a couple of decades away from probably fixing this problem.
That would be
Neuralink, maybe?
Neuralink, yeah. Neuralink will solve this. Dude, people are playing Civilization 6 with their mind.
Played Civ all night. That's awesome.
I don't even know. I want to know how that works. Like, what?
That's insane.
Because I've done eye tracking stuff. I played Infamous 2 once at GDC with eye tracking, which I thought was creepy as fuck, where the eye tracking acts as your right stick. So like you play with the left stick, you can so basically play with one hand almost. And then it worked. Like it did work. I have no idea how. It's like, oh, like just look where you want to go. And it just like went. So it's got to be like some really crazy version of that. But I'm so fat. I was like, dude, we are getting to crazy Black Mirror level stuff now. And so I think the vision stuff will be hopefully fixed for a lot of people real soon.
That we're not far off. I mean, that reminds me of the old classic question though. Let me put this to you guys before we start. Is it better, and I don't know what, I say better in quotes, to have, be born blind, for instance, or to have sight and then lose it? Which is the more, you know what I mean? Which one would be easier? Which one would you prefer?
Born blind, I think would be easier.
Ignorance is bliss.
You don't know what you're
losing. It would be easier. Yeah.
And you immediately start acclimating to the sightless world, like the second you're in it. You just start learning the world with 4 senses. And so you have every advantage,
That's a good point.
That's why Laura Ingalls Wilder was right. Didn't she go blind?
Was it her, or in the show was her sister?
Oh yeah. Her sister. That's right. And and she learns like Braille and stuff like that.
Yeah. That was an upbeat show.
Oh my God. That show was so fun. Why was that show? Do you guys know what we're talking about? Little House on the Prairie. Do you guys know the show?
They might be too
young. I vaguely remember it.
It's a show from the 70s, I want to say, and into the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. And it was so dry and colonial, or it was really frontiersman era or whatever. And everyone wondered how the show was on, but it was on for like years and years and a million episodes, but no one seemed to really like it.
It was super real though. Like it presented those days as being really trying on the people. Like it was just relentlessly downbeat. Like there was always something happening to these poor people. And it was, it doesn't get a lot of credit for being one of those shows that was filmed out on location, very big budget. You know what I mean? Like it was a really expensive, very ambitious TV show, but it never gets brought up in those conversations, which is kind of interesting. I never really liked it. Our sisters loved it growing up. But yeah, for me, it was just way too dreary. It was like, all right, like you knew, it was like almost like living real life. It was like, all right, things are way too positive right now. Something terrible is going to happen. And it always did. It was really depressing.
Yeah, I'm trying to see the dates. 74 to 83. How did that? I have just, it's just instinct about dates. Years. It's very weird. But Michael Landon, of course.
Michael Landon, yeah. Yeah, man.
R.I.P. Michael Landon.
R.I.P.
Died in 1991.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I was in high school at the time.
Pancreatic cancer. All right. Dig. I don't host the show, so go ahead.
Listen, I'm going to set this up. Now, all right, where do we start? So let me say this. Today, as per our fearless leader's request, we are centering this episode's conversation around the events of about 2 weeks ago. At the time of this recording, Last Stand Media's live show on March 24th in NYC at the prestigious SVA Theater, School of Visual Arts, for Sacred Symbols 300. This was LSM's live event for 2024, the only one we've done this year so far. And just for a little background, it continues an LSM tradition of getting out there to the fans, boots on the ground, to perform and meet you people in the flesh, about 500 folks at a time. We're making some headway. So each of us four have brought a topic related to Sacred Symbols 300 and the events of that weekend in NYC just a couple of weeks ago. And everybody has a cool topic, as I know from our email conversation. Where shall we start? Well, I have a little prop for us today, guys. This is a spinner, a board game spinner from my son's favorite game when he was little. This is Dogman Attack of the Fleas, I want to say.
Is that a Dave Pilkey joint? Dogman?
This is a Dave Pilkey joint.
Whoa. Throwback.
What? Dustin pulling out the Dave because
dude, I was a Captain Underpants fan. I mean, that was peak in 2001. So
yeah,
I was the target audience at the time. I mean, completely.
Now, you had aged out by Dogman already.
Yeah, I was aged out. I know I was at Target last night. I'm like, man, he's still making Dogman books. I saw one.
Yeah, dude.
It's like, whoa, he's still going. Good for him. I hope he's a millionaire, multimillionaire, probably.
Oh, he's got to be, right? He's you know what's cool about Dogman? I don't know that much about Captain Underpants since my son's only 13 now. He kind of discovered the older Dave Pilkey stuff through Dogman. Yeah. But he only puts a Dogman book out like once every 9 months to a year. Like he doesn't seem like he's milking it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you don't get tired of it. He has this cadence with putting out the books that always seemed pretty classy to me.
Mm-hmm. Right. But you can't fuck George R.R. Martin. Get on Dave Pilkey's level.
Yeah, make a kid's
I haven't released a book since 2011 or something like that.
That book's never coming out.
Not coming out. No.
You don't think so?
No.
Holly's almost done with the last one, and she's finishing it now. And she's said, "I don't expect to ever read another book in this series. She's already there. She's cool with it." So
it did give people a lot of time to catch up, though. It was a nice respite. But I do feel bad for people like Holly, though, that put the legwork in. Now they're not getting anything more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
I read the first two and I tapped out, but they were great. They were great books. It's just like a lifestyle when you read them. They're so fucking long and thick.
Mm-hmm. Brad, what about you?
What about me? What?
Did you read the books, the Game of Thrones?
I read a lot of them. Yeah, not all of them though. But I read. I think I skipped the first two books or whatever. Oh, and they were good. Yeah, but I don't want to go back.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because I watched the show, then I got into the books later, and I was like, I don't want to reread what I already know. But now I never want to go back because it's not gonna. It feels like it's never gonna end. So I'm just like, fuck it.
It's not gonna resolve in anything.
Yeah, exactly.
He got too comfortable, man. He's just not hungry. I mean, he's a classic case. He's a great topic for a future episode. Not even the content, but him.
Yeah.
He's very interesting because he still does seminars. He still does lectures. He talks about his writing. He sits with his pal, StephenKing. They chop
anything but writing, really.
Yeah, and he'll do anything but writing. He'll be at every Jets practice in the offseason as well.
That's right.
He's always on the sidelines of Jets. By the way, someone reached out to Micah. This is very interesting. Someone reached out to Micah that works for the Jets. And this is a real person, and apparently can get me into like practice sessions.
What?
Like this, and like at training camp or whatever and stuff like that. So that would be in Cortland. I'm like, dude, I'm there. If I meet Aaron Rodgers, I'm gonna shit. I'll tell you right now.
Is he still fucked up?
He can play this year. He's better now. Yeah. Well, he's on his recovery, but by the time the season begins, he'll.
Is there training camp in Cortland?
Yeah, it used to be on Long Island, and then they moved it. It used to be at Hofstra, and then they moved it to Cortland.
Cortland's beautiful, dude. I would move there in 2 seconds. One of my favorite places. Yeah. Finger Lakes, baby. Come on. Let's get serious. Apple orchards. Come on. Not the fingered lakes.
the fingering lakes.
Finger blast lakes.
That was the scenic lookout in high school. Now, listen. I'm going to go last, so we only need 3, okay? Kyle, you're number 1. Dust, you're 2. Brad, you're 3. And I'm just going to spin to see who goes first today. All right? Okay. And we're going to do that for all you guys. We're just going to do it by chance because I like all your topics. We're going with number 2, Dust.
That's me.
You're starting.
I win. Okay, cool.
I'm just getting up to open the door, so don't ignore me for a second.
Oh, yeah, cool. So my
Colin's
topic.
Away, though, real quick. Oh, George R. R. Martin. We got some Elden Ring from him. Got a Mythil, so he's set up.
Again, anything but the books. He's I'm going to cozy up with this Japanese dude. And write some shit for a sequel game, even though he always called it a sequel to Dark Souls. It's like, no, you don't. He doesn't really know.
He doesn't know.
Okay, so my topic being that we're talking about our travels to New York City, I wanted to ask you guys about, of course, food, local delicacies. And this is something very important to me anywhere I travel. In fact, it's pretty much as important as visiting different places or, landmarks, tourist attractions, whatever. It's making sure to eat as much as possible. So specifically, and we can take this whether, food that you've enjoyed on other vacations or specifically New York. I want to talk specifically about New York just because there's kind of 3 main food subjects for my trip, starting with, and I'll save the controversial one for last, starting with the bodega. Something brought up many times on Sacred Symbols, the deli, the bodega that you go to. And so I was getting coffee with a friend of the show, Brandon, one morning. We're like, we got to go get a breakfast sandwich somewhere. And I almost fucked up because I was looking on Google Maps and I just searched bagels, and there was a bagel place that was well reviewed. And I said, well, we'll go over here. Did a little research. This was like a bigger local chain. And I thought, no. I want this place to look scary when I go there. And so we found this other one that was on the same block as our hotel. And it was kind of exactly what I expected. You go in, they've got all the food behind the counter. Some of it looks good, some of it very suspect. Specifically, there was just this almost gelatinous looking pile of salmon behind the counter, behind the glass. Did not trust that one bit. But I got the classic bacon, egg, and cheese on the bagel. And it was one of those places
SBK?
They got like a
SBK.
Is that
SBK
no,
is
SBK? No,
100%.
No. That's salt. Wait, SBK is what is that
Salt,
exactly?
pepper,
Is that salt, pepper? Yeah, no. Now Brandon did, but we don't need to get into this once again. You guys will see the live show video in not too long. So, but yeah, just a couple of table and chairs that were disgusting in the back. They had like a little bar counter that had a big sign that you're only supposed to be there 20 minutes if you order food. And it was awesome. It was so good. And it was it was like $5 for sandwich. They've got all the different coolers that have all the different drinks and stuff. So good. When I left, I think it might have been the first time, Brad, I saw you outside and I was like, yo, dude, you got to eat here. So we ended up eating there multiple times. But that's something talking about the broader topic is just that it's important for me when I'm traveling that, there's all these tourist trap food places. And some of them are, it's tough because some of them are really good. And the next one I could talk about, or I'm going to talk about, is semi-tourist trappy, but not really. But I really like finding these hole-in-the-wall places. And I mean, that's like the saying that's like, if it's a hole in the wall, the food is probably amazing. If you're slightly scared when you're there, prepare because it's going to be awesome. And that was exactly this place. The next thing was when Ben had gone to New York City a few months prior and checked out the venue for the New York Game Awards, he went to this place where he got a pastrami sandwich that he was raving about for months. And I actually had never had pastrami before. So I wasn't I didn't want to eat it because I didn't know what it was. Obviously, it's some kind of meat. It's probably going to be good. So, but I wasn't too thrilled. And Ben's like, listen, the sandwich is $27, but it's worth it. Trust me. So we ended up going there. We went, and Brad, you came along. You and Kristen came, and we went to Kat's Deli. Now, for our New Yorker boys, does that ring a bell for you guys?
Of course.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's like
a legendary spot.
Which that's where they filmed the scene there of When Harry Met Sally, right? Yep. Where she's like faking an orgasm, eating the sandwich, right?
Is that filmed at Katz's?
I don't know
have what she's having.
Yeah. Okay. They had a sign over the table that said, I'll have what she's having. And it pointed down to that table.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So confirmed. Right.
But I did a little research on this place, and it's one of the oldest delis in New York. They have specifically tried to change it as little as possible. And so it's very classic. You go in, you get the ticket, get in line at the counter, tell them what you want. So of course I got the pastrami. They're cutting it up in front of you. They put a little bit on a plate so you can have a little snack while you're waiting.
That's right.
And it was just so insanely busy when we were there too. I felt bad because we didn't have enough seats. And so Brad had to be at the seat at the end that wasn't really supposed to be there. It was like the bitch seat of the table. And there was just there was like a guy with a cart constantly coming by.
Yeah.
But this pastrami sandwich, man, $27, which again, not cheap. And that's just a sandwich. But this thing piled up with pastrami, and it was absolutely amazing. And I was a little, not annoyed, but I was like, man, I only really wanted half a sandwich, but I can't buy half a sandwich. So I guess they got me there. Now I need to break because Brad, I have to ask, I've been meaning to ask you this, and I thought, what a better time live between thousands of people listening. Were you hungover that morning?
No, just sometimes in the morning, it takes me a while to get like really hungry. So I wasn't like ready to eat quite yet.
Yeah, I'm like that too, bro.
I noticed you got a coffee, a cold brew. You took like 2 sips of it.
I don't drink a lot of coffee anymore now, though. When I have coffee, I just have small amounts now. It's weird. I just don't need a lot of caffeine anymore because I got off a lot of it, and I just naturally have a lot more energy now, so I don't feel the need to do it.
Wow.
You were deeply analyzed at this table.
I was curious. I was worried you weren't feeling good because I was like, he's been carrying around this coffee.
No,
He gets a burger at the pastrami place, takes a few bites. I was like, is Brad okay here?
Well, the pastrami thing, I was like, well, Kristen got some pastrami, so I just had some of hers if I really wanted it. I have pastrami quite often. We have a place called The Hat where I'm at.
Oh,
they're well known for pastrami sandwiches, so I'm no stranger to pastrami. But it was a good pastrami, I will admit. It was much more thicker than I expected the cuts to be, which was surprising to me. I'm used to it much more thinly.
Yeah, thin
we
slice.
like those thick cuts.
Yeah. Dustin, I was slightly hungover after the first night, though. Those
we
sour
did go
beers,
a little hard.
Yeah, those sour beers got to me after a little bit, and we went pretty ham on the pizza.
Sour beers and 1:30 a.m. pizza.
Yeah.
Dude, and you got the buffalo chicken too. That's like,
it was good.
That is the #1 recipe for heartburn. Sour beers and buffalo chicken pizza. Holy shit! I think I would maybe die if I did that. But
yeah, but no,
that was really So the Cat's Deli, very awesome. I highly recommend checking that out, and worth the price of admission. And last thing, I saved this for last because I know we'll have the most discussion, and this is somewhat of a follow-up of many previous conversations. And that is, of course, the New York pizza. I had pizza 3 or 4 times, I think, at a few different places, and it was good. In fact,
careful.
I would say
Be really careful.
It was pretty good, but it wasn't amazing. I think it was a little overhyped. The New York pizza. I've had better pizza in Boston.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I did.
I lived there for 5 years. No, you haven't.
The New England thing.
I had better pizza in Boston. Just saying. Dig, please. I'm ready. Bring it on.
No, you know what? I want to ask Colin's opinion on something. With New York, I worked in Manhattan. When I get to my part of this thing, I'll talk more about this, but I worked in Manhattan for over 20 years. So I've eaten everywhere, upscale, downscale, cheap, expensive, whatever, pizza included. And I feel like in New York, yes, the pizza on the whole is very good, but New York is big enough. And I think there's a discrepancy, not a discrepancy, but there's a wide net in terms of quality that you can have shitty pizza in New York City, in Manhattan specifically. I will say this, though. It's very hard, and I know I'm a little biased, but stay with me on this. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to get bad pizza on Long Island, where we grew up. All the pizzerias to a place are usually very, very good. I feel like when you talk about New York pizza, I want to give the nod to Long Island specifically, because I feel like Long Island pizza. Now, we have our favorite haunts, pizza joints on Long Island, but I feel like almost anywhere you go for pizza is going to be above average on Long Island for the most part. Manhattan, I just feel like it can go wrong, and you have to know the spots. And really, you could go by what people say. It's like cheesesteaks in Philly, right? These places have the best reputation, but you really got to try it for yourself and see where the locals go.
Where are the 2 places that are across the street from each other in Philly? That's Geno's and
Pat's and Geno's.
Pat's, right? That's so funny. I love that. That's like the funniest thing to me is that they're like right across the street from each other.
I was told in Philly that it's specifically about the type of cheese you use. Like there's a certain brand.
Cheese Whiz.
You could do Cheese Whiz. You could do Provolone. You could do American. Some people do American.
Yeah, American.
There was some kind of brand though. When I was in, so we weren't in downtown Philly proper, but when I was at Too Many Games, we went to this place that it was like, I'm not trying to say I had the best authentic Philly cheesesteak sub, but the guy there, I think this was shout out Gooch, who was hanging out with us. He was at Sacred 300. He was like, oh, they use this type of cheese. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's going to be pretty good, probably.
Dust, is it Cooper Sharp?
Yes, I think that's it.
Cooper Sharp.
I think that sounds really familiar.
Yeah, that's a very Philly thing for...
It was very good. It was great, actually. So now, okay, about more of this pizza stuff, I got to say, this is the other offensive thing. The first place we went, Brad, that first night you got the buff chick. I got the very traditional New York thin crust pepperoni. Pretty good. I got a second piece and I went against the grain. They had a thicker crust pizza.
Yeah.
Infinitely better.
I remember
than
you
the
saying
thin
this.
crust.
Like, so a thicker crust circle cut pizza? Or was it Sicilian? So it's square. So you had a Sicilian piece of pizza.
That's Sicilian.
That's called a Sicilian pizza.
Yeah, it's Sicilian. The thing that's odd to me is that all of the Sicilians I've had around Pittsburgh were probably twice as thick as that Sicilian. So it didn't feel like what I know as Sicilian, but I guess it is.
There's kind of a third kind of pie too, which is like the grandma's pie, right? Which is like very saucy, but kind of made like a Sicilian pie. And there's also cold pizza now, like cold cheese pizza, which started on Long Island, specifically in Huntington. Well, they'll put like a glob of cold mozzarella on like top of your pizza and then give it to you like that, which is really good. But here's the thing, in my opinion. Well, go ahead.
I thought that was a Pittsburgh thing because there's always the meme that goes around about the cold mozzarella that's put on after the pizza was baked. Is this like a normal pizza and then cold mozzarella on top?
Yeah, it's what you're describing. It could very well be along with when Darwin discovered evolution, actually someone else discovered it at the same time and got very little credit for it. So it could be the same thing. But we know this from a place in Huntington that I think started it, and it's kind of like a thing on Long Island. But it could be a thing elsewhere too.
Sure.
And I think they call it a cold slice is what like you order cold slice. And so here's what I have to say about pizza. In my experience, so I've lived in all these different places. California pizza is a fucking abomination, right? Like no offense. There's people that do it well there, but you have to go and seek it out. More on that in a second, because it's a funny connection to the story in New York, actually. But generally speaking, like in San Francisco, the best pizza is Patchy's, which is a small chain, and it's Chicago style.
Yeah.
That place is dope. You know, like that. I would have, if someone was like, you want to go get pizza, like that's the only option for me in San Francisco. It's like, oh, we'll go to Patchy's and we'll eat fork and knife pizza. That's great. You dip the big thing they do is you dip every table has honey at it. And when you go in, you're like, why is that? And then at the end, you take the crust and you dip it in the honey, and it is so good.
Oh, wow.
So shout out to Chicago style pizza for that. That has a place. But Boston pizza, usually Boston pizza places are run by Greeks. They got a whole different vibe to their pizza, in my opinion. It's good, but so I used to go to 3 or 4 places in Boston in particular. I don't know if any of them are still there. B-Hop, Boston House of Pizza. U-Hop, University House of Pizza. New York Pizza, which was the best one of them all, maybe because of the name, and a place called Cappy's, specifically Cappy's 2, which is a very New York thing to do, to put a number after your... That's a very Long Island thing, to have like just another one and just call it something 2. I never saw that anywhere else. I don't know why what that was all about.
What is that? Is that like a branding thing? You don't have to pay more if you just
or like people know what it is, and so like, and it makes it seem bigger, and like, oh, that we have a branch and all these kinds of things, that kind of thing. But so Boston pizza to me was always like, I was desperate. I ate a lot of pizza in Boston. I would say it's pretty subpar, generally speaking, but I wasn't going to the North End and like getting the nice pizza and all that kind of stuff. I was like getting whatever was around Northeastern. And then, so Long Island pizza is dominant. Some people say, give a shout out to Northern Jersey as well, to New Haven in Connecticut, good pizza. But what I was going to say about New York pizza, in my opinion, New York, so like, I'll just say tri-state area pizza basically, but let's just say New York City even, is you kind of have to try, in my opinion, to find bad pizza there. Like, there's just so many options that it's not like you're going to be wedged into the place. Now, you could just stumble upon a place and I guess have a bad slice, but you would know that after that and never go there again. So I don't really know very much about like eateries in New York City at all, because we're not from there. And Dagan has experienced this a lot as well, I think, in his life, although he knows it a lot better. Is like, when you're from Long Island, people just assume you're from New York City or know anything about New York City. And I'm like, Long Island and New York City are 2 different places. I have no idea what you want me to tell you about New York City. But we got into this show and we went on Postmates, and I just looked up like, let's just get pizza. And Joe's Pizza came up, and there's like 4 locations in New York City and it had like good reviews. I'm like, this sounds fine, like whatever. And it got delivered in like a millisecond, which was hysterical too. So I appreciated that. And it was hot. And it was really, really good. It wasn't the best pizza I ever had, but I was saying to Micah, and she agreed. I'm like, this is better than any pizza we can get in Virginia. Like just this fucking average Postmates suggestion. But then I realized this is the connection back to Santa Monica. is I was telling Chris about that the next day. I'm like, dude, I went to this place, Joe's Pizza. Do you know it? And he's like, yeah, we used to go to Joe's Pizza. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, like we've never hung out in New York at all. And he's like, no, man, we used to go to the Joe's Pizza in Santa Monica. And I'm like, that's the same Joe's Pizza? And he's like, yeah.
I didn't know this. I didn't know that.
We used to go after the show. We used to go to like a pizza shop, which is like right on Ocean Ave, like Second and Ocean or something. And it was Joe's Pizza. And I just,
Avenue, dude.
And I just thought it was Joe's Pizza. You know, like, oh, it's just a Joe's Pizza. And then, so I was like, oh, that's so strange. And that pizza was like the good pizza in that area in California too. So I had that. See, now let me say this though. This is just my opinion. If you're getting a New York slice, you can't get it with anything on it. Like you got to eat it straight up. No toppings are for New York toppings. Toppings in New York, I think, are much more limited. Pepperoni, sausage is really great on New York slices because they slice real sausages instead of using the crumbled sausage like you would at like Domino's or something like that.
Right.
But in my opinion, toppings on pizza come from Domino's and Pizza Hut and kind of the obfuscation of the cardboardness and the blandness of those pizzas. You don't really need to have toppings on a New York slice. That's a luxury that sometimes you could afford. But when I hear you getting buffalo chicken New York style pizza, that makes you want to. That makes you want to.
That was Brad.
That makes you want to just erupt in rage. Like that's so many steps beyond what you need to do. All right, so you go in, you get the New York slice. Maybe you get some pepperoni. It's like, why do you got to go any crazier than that? You don't need to do that to the New York slice because you're not trying to hide from anything here.
Yes, the toppings are almost a way to compensate for mediocre pizza.
It's totally what it is.
I feel the same way as you on that.
I mean, totally.
This is like that little Caesar meme, Dustin. Oh, just like
buff chick's so good when you have a bitch in your ear telling you it's bad. Colin's a bitch.
That rules. I love that.
Exactly what it is. I didn't complain about the pizza, man. I had plenty of pizza. That was good.
Brad's cutting strays here, but
yeah. I tried a lot of pizza.
You got 2 slices that night too, right? Or was it double?
Dude. I didn't just get
buff?
the buffalo. I'm not a psychopath who's only going to get buffalo chicken. I was experimenting. Right. I was seeing what they had to offer.
Experimenting in New York. I like it. Yeah. Now I wanted to ask you guys too. So for the pizza that we ordered for the green room, you know, we had a discussion on Sacred that if my dad showed up with Domino's, that he was going to get murdered by the staff collectively. So I sought out and looked at all these different places on Google Maps for New York style pizza. And I found the one that was the highest reviewed, able to deliver, whatever. And that's what we had in the green room.
What was it, Dust? What pizza was that?
I'd have to find it. I can't remember exactly what I sent him, but so I'm curious what you guys thought of that, because I thought that was maybe the worst pizza I had, but it was also kind of cold by the time I got to it, so
Me
it wasn't.
Too.
Yeah, same.
But
I agree.
Yeah, I would be judging unfairly because it was definitely tepid by the time I got to it. So, but I noticed the boxes were small. It wasn't your traditional big white pizza, New York pizza box.
Yeah, they were like 6 slice pizzas, like these small.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine. Yeah,
it was called Baggio's Pizzeria.
Oh, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
It was fine. It was totally fine.
They got 5 stars
average for
Google.
Anywhere in the United States outside of a few places, I would say, with that pizza was.
Listen, a Butler Papa John slice was better than that pizza.
Papa John's, wow.
Wow.
That's
just
hardcore.
Saying.
That's hardcore.
Now, not to open the Papa John's controversy again. I am convinced, based on the reaction I've seen from people when me talking about Papa John's, that Papa John's are not all created equal. And I am blessed with a very good Papa John's that has really good pizza, which doesn't make sense because I'm assuming they don't make the dough there, right? Like surely that's all shipped in.
Yeah.
So there's some some pizza crafting.
It's about execution. It's just like any fast food restaurant. It's all about execution, about how like finding a good Burger King is like finding a diamond in the rough.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't know why that is, but it's just true. But when you find the good Burger King, man, you hold it tight.
It's
sloppy.
Yeah, it's like I said it many times. The McDonald's on Hull Street that we go to over here is so good. I'm like, what is going on here at this McDonald's? Why is everything so good here? And it's all run by like 16-year-olds. You know, I'm like, there's just some sort of work ethic.
Yeah,
the fries are always on point. They're salty. The burgers are always well made. They make a mistake here and there that's a little annoying to me. Like Micah ordered an apple pie. They gave her like some random other pie once or whatever. But I'll let that all go. I mean, because when we go to McDonald's, I get something called road fries. These are the things I've always wanted to do when I was a kid, but was never able to do. Because, you get your fries. And so you either, it's like, I'm going to eat these in the car on the way home, and then I won't have any for the burger, for the compliment, or I'd be patient. And so I just don't choose. I order my meal, and then I get another large fry, and I just eat another
fry. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude,
Road
you're
fries.
a fat genius. That's so good.
Yeah.
That is a good idea.
Wow.
I like that. Yeah, but it's just like running that one, you stumble upon that one restaurant that they're running a tight ship in there for some. I wonder if Papa John's is franchised though. Is that like, I know all the Dunkin' Donuts out here now are franchised.
Yeah.
So you could hit or miss. If they're kind of up on their game at such and such Dunkin' Donuts, but the one down the road sucks.
Well,
You know what I mean? I feel like franchising could be beneficial for the consumer, but it could also be shitty.
Well, it's the path of least resistance when you're a business to just do that. If you give a shit about your brand, like In-N-Out, then they don't franchise.
You wouldn't franchise it. Yeah.
Papa John's, they are franchised. But the last thing I'll say, I posted a picture after the recent Papa John's gate on our Discord. Multiple comments said, that is the best looking Papa John's I have ever seen. So just take it easy, keyboard warriors. I see you, but take it easy. So anyway, that's kind of all the major food escapades of New York. Couple coffee shops, of course, that were all very good. But I'm curious, did you guys eat well in your? I guess I didn't talk about our staff dinner at all. Which was okay. Just okay. Really watered down. Colin, you would have been furious.
I would have never ordered a cocktail at an Italian restaurant. I wouldn't have been that foolish. So you guys were on your own, unfortunately, that night, and I wasn't there to protect you. But I would never in a million years order a cocktail at a place like that. So
the drink Brad had was pretty good because Brandon got the same thing and I tasted a little bit. I was like, oh, that's actually good. Unlike my old fashioned that tastes like water. That
looked like shit, dude.
It was.
I've started sending drinks back more as I've gotten older, where I'm like, this is not right. Like I know what an old fashioned is. This is not an old fashioned. So do try again. Like at a restaurant we go to here, Boathouse, which is pretty good. They have like a house old fashioned, which I don't understand why you would have a house old fashioned, but okay, that's fine. And when you order an old fashioned, you have to specify that you don't want their shitty house old fashioned and they served it to me. And I was like, excuse me, I ordered an old fashioned. There's cinnamon in this, like clear. And they're like, yeah, it's our house old fashioned. I'm like, can I just get like the 1790 era old fashioned, please? Like that I ordered. Why is there cinnamon in this? This is disgusting. It was actually, I was with our mom, and our mom likes old fashions too. And we both like took a sip and we're like, what is this? Like this
Fireball old
why are you
maybe?
like doing this? Why are you making it so complicated? It's so annoying. So yeah, Italian restaurants and that. Yeah, you drink like beer or like wine.
Yeah. They're kind of known for that. You're right about that. I don't know why that is. I don't mean to stereotype, but Dust, I missed the staff dinner too. Are we naming names? I mean, tell us about what happened.
What was it called?
I am trying to. It was right across the street from the venue.
Yeah, it was close to it.
Oh, okay.
It was called. I can't fucking find it. I'll be able to find it. I'll find it when someone else is talking.
I had a series of recommendations from Eric Castro to go in New York, which would have all been vastly superior, but they were all apparently too small to accommodate a party of.
And they didn't have real food.
10. Did he only give you cocktail bars? Or
they only had like small plates. So they weren't.
Well,
they
that's
weren't
what we
dinner.
like. We like tapas kind of stuff when we go drink. But yeah, that's
I like
fair.
that too. But that's not good for a big group.
No.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, it was. I got pizza there as well,
Same.
and it was good. It was very good, I would say, but it didn't blow my socks off. I don't know. Brad, did Kristen get pizza too? Like, I'm trying to remember how everyone else's meal was.
I feel like something else. You and me got pizza though. I remember.
I feel like that place, no one was raving about it when we left, but no one was upset except for the drinks were shit.
Well, I wasn't upset because we didn't have to pay for it.
That's awesome. True. Yeah, Papa Colin paying for the meal, not even there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Big Willie.
Colin's like, what? I didn't know of this.
Big Willie.
Well, we missed it. We missed it because of the redirection of our flight. Maybe I dodged a bullet though. I don't want subpar Italian food.
No, it wasn't that bad. It was fine. I wasn't like offended or anything by it.
Yeah, I don't really go for Italian food usually out. It sounds kind of stupid, but like the people in my family make way better Italian food than you're going to get at most of these restaurants. The way I like it, like American Italian food.
Yeah, what you're used to.
Yeah, so like the sauce, like our sauces and our meatballs and everything, like they're way better than this. Like a lot of the shit you would get at a nice restaurant. The one example, though, the one exception, and you've been there too, Dustin, I think, because I think I brought you there. But Dagan and I used to go there all the time. Is Scopa in Santa Monica, which is an Italian restaurant technically, but it's like very nouveau, and they had sick cocktails there too. But that place was so good.
So good.
If we go back to LA for any reason, I'm going to be there like a magnet. Yeah.
And we finally got invited to the Speakeasy. Remember this, Kyle? I always brag about this. We made enough appearances, I feel like, that one waiter, I think that one waiter might have already known you. But I think you and I were in there frequently enough where he finally tipped us off to the Speakeasy, which maybe you were unaware of.
Yeah, I didn't know about it. Yeah, it was your vibe
like,
that brought it out of him, I think. You know.
And then you moved.
And then I moved.
Dang it.
I spent thousands and thousands of dollars at that restaurant. Like I used to eat there, and it was really expensive, but I used to eat there all the time. And I used to get like pasta plates for appetizers. Do you remember that? And then I would eat.
Oh yeah, we got
and then I would eat the chicken dish. They'd be like, "So do you want an appetizer?" I'm like, "No, what I want is one of these pasta dinners for my appetizer." And then I'll get the chicken with the kale. Oh,
Jesus.
This chicken dish was a half a roasted chicken in like was it in a cast iron skillet?
Yeah, it's like in a skillet. Yeah, like
right.
It was
just covered in this cream sauce. It was the most rich, decadent thing, and then it had kale in it too.
Kale
so you
and
felt
polenta.
a little better about yourself.
Yeah,
it was just soggy in the cream sauce with the chicken. It was. I never ordered another thing. Colin the first time we went in, Colin's like, "This is what I always get. It's amazing. You can't go wrong." I never ordered another thing in that place 5-6 times.
Yeah, because it's an opportunity cost. That's why I don't like even going to new restaurants. And this bothers people. Like in our family, they make fun of me because I have like 4 restaurants in my area that I go to like on a rotation. And they're like, why don't you go try this, and that's like, it's an opportunity cost, dude.
If it's not
these
broken.
places are great. I know I'm going to enjoy myself at these places. We're going to one tonight. You know, so.
Okay.
Oh, nice. I'm jealous. Dust, do you mind if I inherit the baton off this?
No, but
you
please.
finish first.
I was just calling that Italian place. I remember I was a little, I don't know, nervous, but you were taking us out. That was the first time. And I was like, okay, well, I got to make sure. I don't want to order something more expensive than what Colin gets. I don't want to be disrespectful.
You're being polite.
And I was looking at the menu and I wasn't looking at price. I was like, oh, pork chop. That sounds, I've never had a pork chop out. And you were like, get it. You just do it. And I think it was more expensive than the chicken. I appreciated that small gesture. And I got it and it was amazing.
I think that when you bring people out, like, I bring our sisters out sometimes, or like our sisters and my mom or whatever. And it's like, I just say, like, when you sit down, it's like, it's on me, man. Get whatever you want. You know, I feel like when you bring people to dinner, you can't be weird about it. You're either going to bring people to dinner and allow them to have their option of entree and appetizer.
No, absolutely.
Or just don't do it. Like, or just don't or just go halves with it or something like that. So no, and that's no problem at all. I often get the cheapest or one of the cheapest things on the menu, like where we're going tonight, Charred, which is, there's 2 of them, just a nice little like Americana restaurant, good bar. And I just get the burger. It's like $12 or something like that. And then I get like a couple old fashions. Micah gets whatever, pizza or scallops or something. She doesn't drink. So.
Oh, Micah doesn't drink.
Yeah.
I always forget about that.
I get lit up at some of these dinners. Yeah.
Feels good to get a buzz with dinner, man.
Well, usually it's like, I order, sit down, old fashioned. It usually goes like this: ordering old fashioned and then maybe the appetizer at the same time, but definitely old fashioned, then appetizer, then dinner. When dinner comes, either like kind of in that interim, or when dinner comes, give me another old fashioned, please. Okay, another old fashioned comes. Then they take the plates away. Now this is where, you know, so at Scopa, what I used to do is I'd order like the Italian cookies and an Irish coffee for like a little dessert. But now I'm just not really on the dessert thing anymore. I think specifically because Micah doesn't drink. So it's like, I'm going to just sit here and drink this drink for 20 minutes while you drink nothing. It's just kind of, it's rude. You know, you want to drink with someone who wants to drink with you, you know? So
yeah, absolutely.
So I don't want to like
of course.
pull her into that. So I usually forego these days the third drink, but I love an Irish coffee with whipped cream on top of it.
It's good shit.
Tell you what,
dude, that dinner, I got pretty lit up because I think I did the pre-meal for old fashioned, the with meal, and then you're like, let's get another round. So I was on old fashioned 3, and I don't normally drink that much. I remember, and then we went back to your place where we then had a little smoke sesh, and I was gone.
Yeah,
the spins
fusion, dude. Yeah, you got messed up.
Papa Colin loves to drink. That's why he tries to stay away as much as possible.
Yeah. it could be dangerous. You know what's nice about the Irish coffee too, Kyle? If you didn't tag one on enough during the meal, and you it's like one more opportunity to get that buzz that you're looking
Definitely.
for. You know,
because
as you're going out.
Because I used to, when I started, I don't drink coffee. I don't mind it. It's good, but I just never go for it ever. It's not like when I was like kind of funny. It was funny. I was telling Micah this recently because we were at a Starbucks, and I'm like, those guys were so obsessed with coffee. And we all were like together constantly that we basically had like our normal Starbucks order. And it was like, Tim gets this and Greg gets this. And then I would get one of those bottles of water that they sell, like Planet Earth bottle of water. Like that's what I would get. And so like when everyone went, that was like the order. Everyone's like, oh yeah,
you were like the 3-year-old.
Right, exactly.
Like I just 3-year-old.
So I wasn't really into it. And I know people like Ramon, who's going to be on the show, I think again soon. We want to do a one-on-one music podcast, like a one-on-one music episode of Constellation.
Ooh. Yeah. That'll be
which I think would be really cool. But he's like he's got like the chemistry set shit going on, right? Where he's like takes like an hour to make his coffee, and he's got the beakers and all that kind of stuff, which is dope. I mean, that's cool too. But I've just never gotten into it. And then our dad loves coffee and he loves good coffee, but then he'll also drink like Folgers if it's around or whatever. Like he's like down for whatever, but he's gotten a little bit more sophisticated. He's gotten older as well. Anyway, I'm going on and on to say that when I was in San Francisco, like late in my career there, I started drinking espresso after dinner. And I did like it. And it is a good aperitif, if I do say so myself. And that it does help kind of digest and all that stuff. And then that kind of got into the Irish. So I think I was with Eric, good influence, who was like, you ever try an Irish coffee? And I was like, no. And then I was like, oh my God. Like I can't do this kind of stuff at home. Like I would be an alcoholic. That's why I had to drink all my bourbon and never buy any again. Because it was like, it's just too good.
You drank it all? You didn't do the pouring down the drain thing?
Oh no, I drank it all.
That's much more ritualistic, I feel like.
I slowly let it whittle down because I had like probably 70 or 80 bottles at one time, like the highest, and I just stopped buying it, and then slowly would drink it. I even drank my Pappy and all that kind of stuff, like things I would never drink. I never thought I'd actually drink. So I drank it with Ramon, actually.
Oh, that's all. I love that. Just a kind of like a ritual, like a parting ritual.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, dude, these, like every ounce of this is like $45 or something like that.
Yeah, it's expensive, that stuff.
And we just drank the whole bottle, I think, over a weekend, which was good. So,
Dustin, I got to know, did you get a hot dog when you were there?
No, I meant to.
Street meat?
I meant to. I wanted to, and then it just didn't. We were like leaving. I'm like, fuck. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
What about you, Brad? Did you get the dirty water dog?
No, I mean, this is my third time to New York, so I've had a hot dog there before. And it's cool. Like, it's just rad that there's so many just random food vendors everywhere that it's like you can just find food anywhere in New York City, which is awesome. I love that. And it's not all chains, which is great. Because like Colin, you're probably used to it. There's a lot of chains like in California, especially like LA, Orange County. But yeah. The one thing awesome.
The one thing I love about LA, you probably have, I think you certainly have this in Orange County as well, are like the little Mexican ladies selling like sausages and hot dogs.
Yeah.
Like outside of bars and stuff, and that, or tacos and burritos and stuff like that. And that shit is dope.
It's good, yeah.
Like I love that stuff. They put the onions and the pepper on it. It's like $3 or something cash. Oh, and they're like literally stationed right outside of a bar as you walk out. Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Smart. Yeah. That's what you guys do well out there. Yeah. You guys do that well. You know what though, Brad? I will say this. This is a very Micah food take, but I mean this from the bottom of my heart, genuinely. If you go to New York, especially in the fall or the winter, cold weather, and you go to the dirty water dog stand, maybe this applies to like the halal food, Middle Eastern stuff, but especially the hot dogs and the pretzels, the soft pretzels. This grosses out my daughter and my wife, but you go to the cart, maybe you're down in Times Square or a little further up near Radio City. You go to the one near the manhole cover that's blowing up the smoke because you get the smoky flavor on the I don't know what it is. It's going to take years off your life. It's disgusting. It's unnatural, but it's no coincidence this cart is perched over that smoking manhole cover. It just makes everything so smoky and delicious. It's disgusting. It's like Con Ed meets the street food, but
that's so interesting.
Dude, I'm all about it. Like that.
I know the taste you're talking about. I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's
that's
a very
fall
specific
in New York. That's smokiness.
Yeah, it's like a Penn Station. God. You'll like get it like a waft of it when you leave Penn Station or like a subway station or.
It can't be good for you.
No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't even describe it though. It's right on. Dude, the two other things that I want to say before we part out of this, if and obviously leave it to Dustin to navigate his own. But I went to a deli and got a sandwich one day. It was just very nostalgic for me because I literally worked in a deli just like these delis on Long Island. And it's kind of like, it's just so funny. I'm like, wow, this is so comfortable and interesting. The smell is so familiar. The smell of a New York deli is so specific. They all have it. And even the one I worked at, and it's like, wow, this is so funny because we just don't have things. We don't have places like this anywhere else. Like there's that old joke about people in New York City thinking that no one has bodegas. They're like, who has the corner store or whatever? Like everyone has a convenience store, but like the New York delicatessen, like the deli, you walk in, everything's behind the counter. It's kind of what you were describing earlier, Dustin. And you got like a lot of the pre-made stuff and the bagels, and you can make egg sandwiches, and people are doing cold cuts. It's exactly the situation I used to work in. And so that's very familiar to me. And I love getting deli sandwiches. And of course you walk into the first deli and it's like Boar's Head. Like, yeah, of course. And the second thing I have to say, and this is a New York tradition, although they did sell out and start licensing their brand, is I did have Shake Shack one night, which of course is born in New York. And they're everywhere now, but they're not here where we are, so I can't get it. And Mike is really into it. The crinkle fries are obviously so good, but
it's very good.
Those burgers are so dope. But you can really get that. And that used to be a thing you had to do in New York. And I remember going to one for the first time 15 years ago or whatever. And the fucking line was out the door and all of that. But now you can, I went to one in Vegas. I think there's one in there is one in LA or two in LA.
There's one right by me.
Right. So they spread out. They were kind of like the In-N-Out of New York, but they took the other route, which was, and this is what I was saying earlier, like In-N-Out has protected its brand. It's much more difficult, but it keeps the quality high. They probably make less money because they have to, as opposed to the licensors. Shake Shack went public and licensed their brand, and they're like, who gives a shit? We just made a bunch of money. So it's just a totally different vibe. But the even their hot dogs, I didn't get one this time, but their hot dogs are really good too.
Yeah. Shake Shack's good.
Dude, and you have one near you, I think. You got to go to Portillo's. Because
I've never been there,
place.
actually.
That place is great.
I love hot dogs, so yeah.
Oh my God, dude, you'd love it there. It's so, it's so good. Yeah, I love Portillo's.
Dag, you said you asked for the baton. Did you have some thoughts here?
Thanks, Dustin. You're giving me I love this topic. You're giving me so many thoughts. I mean, the first thing I want to say is it occurs to me, it's almost funny, but I feel bad for people because you have to understand New York. I think any big city, not just nationally, but internationally, but especially New York, it's so culturally rich that there's going to be, just by its nature, there's going to be a lot of any one food available to you, right? And just by proxy of that, some of that is going to be among the best you could find anywhere. So insert food here, right? Korean, Japanese, Italian, all that kind of stuff. But New York is such a tourist destination, right? Which plays into Brad's topic later, that people come and they expect, so people are going to New York to see a Broadway show, to take in the sights, see the landmarks, take the kids to the museum, see the art, whatever, see the Statue of Liberty. You're coming and you're expecting as a part of that experience to get, for instance, very good Italian food or very good pizza for lunch. So when you come in and the food misses the mark, it must be exceptionally heartbreaking because people are just thinking Italian food. It's New York. You know, I grew up watching all the movies. I grew up watching Goodfellas. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but some, like I was mentioning earlier, some of it's going to hit and some of it's going to miss, which is interesting because I think that's why when you go to a place not only as broad and expansive as Long Island, but a suburb, you're not really expecting like that any pizza place is going to hit the spot or at least be above average. Colin and I always say the same thing for Chinese food, Chinese takeout on Long Island, which nobody knows unless you live there, and bagels. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the Brooklyn bagel, that really it's Long Island. Long Island doesn't have any bad bagel places. That doesn't exist. It's just the same thing as Long Island bakeries. It's everything New York's known for, but I think in Manhattan, for some reason, it seems more hit and miss. Where Long Island, it seems like you're going to hit much more often than you're going to miss, which is interesting. I just recently heard, it's funny. I was listening to Rogan the other day. I think he had Joey Diaz on, and they were lamenting the way New York's changed, like a lot of big cities post-COVID, right? Everything's closing. There's no more 24-hour haunts, no more 24-hour diners. You can't eat. And they did mention on that podcast, which I didn't realize, and I just confirmed it online, Katz's Deli went back to being 24 hours, at least on the weekends right now. And it's one of the only 24-hour spots as far as I know. Again, you know, because I was in the earlier in my 20s and my 30s when I worked in New York and we'd go out drinking and, you stumble out of the bar at 11:30, 12:30, whatever, you could go to a diner, as late as the late 20 teens and hit up the diner at 1 a.m, 2 a.m. And that stopped being a thing over the last 5 years. So I was happy to see that Katz's is kind of reverting, and it's smart for them, right? $25, $30 sandwiches. Everybody's going there. Everybody's flocking, at least on that side of town, which is interesting because that's not a thing in New York anymore. And
if you're drunk and you have that $25 sandwich option, I mean, that's a very easy decision to make when you're lit up. And man, I can't even imagine how good it would be to eat that after being lit up, man.
So good, dude.
That'd be something.
So, what's funny too about it, Dust? Like, I remember, this is a while ago, like let's say 15 years ago. I remember when those sandwiches, those big packed cat sandwiches were like 18, 19 bucks. So
Dang.
It's gone up that much. It's gone up like 10 bucks over the last 10 or 15 years. And I thought that was expensive then. But it's so worth it because it is the experience. It's the way you're in line. You're trying to look like a local. You don't want to mess up. They give you that piece of meat to enjoy while they're making your thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's an institution. So it's like, but it's the same thing. I think about this with Philly a lot. It's like Pat's and Geno's, the cheesesteaks and everything. Those aren't the best cheesesteaks. Those are the tourist spots. If you want the best thing, you go to the down home spot. You go to the local yokel neighborhood joint that the people know about, they don't have the money for publicity and marketing and stuff like that. So it's interesting. And I know we're not going to talk about ketchup specifically because we did that during the live show. And I know we did it to death, although it's hilarious. But I was in the supermarket last night. Now, guys, follow me on this. I saw that the Lay's potato chips had the sort of new, like, limited edition flavors, which I think they're doing like the fan made thing where people write in and request a flavor and then people win the contest. And there was one called East Coast BLT. And I was like, all right, I got to try that, but I can't really eat them. So I'll give them to my son because I know he'll like it. It's like a bacon chip. And I just thought, you know what? If we're doing an East Coast thing, to my knowledge, why has nobody done an SPK, a salt, pepper, ketchup chip? It's so easy. You have the ketchup chip already. You have the pepper chip already. And of course, the salted potato chip. You just combine it 3 ways. You got the SPK chip. I'm not saying you have to do an egg thing with it. Maybe you do a cheese thing with it. I don't know. But the SPK chip just had this brainstorm in the supermarket last night. Sounds like a no-brainer to me.
2EC SPK? That was the order. 2 eggs, cheese.
Yeah,
you're the only one here
ketchup
that's
chips.
worked on the other side of the counter, Colin.
Yeah, I used to
We've
make
all
those
eaten
goddamn
them.
egg sandwiches.
You used to make them.
Oh my god. It was a craft. It was an art. It was an honor, really.
Did you ever get a complaint? Like, did you ever get one of your sandwiches sent back?
Probably, I'm sure I did. But yeah, but generally we had a good reputation, and it's really not. Dude, we would go through so many rolls that we would get these roll boxes in the morning, and they would actually be the only boxes we would use that were reusable. Like, you have to keep them. Like, don't throw these boxes out because the bread company comes back and takes them and then gives you, dude, eggs, bacon, like all the things you think about. I'm like, my God, dude, we are making so much of this shit. It's so crazy, but it was fun. And we made French toast and we made like egg burrito breakfasts and like plates and all sorts of things. It was cool. And sandwiches, obviously. I was using I never worked there when I was 18, and I was using like the grill and the slicer, like with reckless abandon. Like, no one gave a shit what was going on there. I used to take the slicer apart and clean it and put it back together too, which is like the most dangerous thing you can do. They were funny. That was a cool place to work, though. That was fun. Big shout out to the diner. I mean,
oh man,
that's another New York institution. They're in other places, obviously, but the idea, I was telling Micah that we had like a trifecta of diners in our area and on Long Island that we would go to that were all open 24 hours a day. So it was really just a matter. And I explained to her like why the reasons you would go to each one were. So I was like, if you want the best experience, you go to the California diner because that's the best one, but it's the furthest one away. If you want the one that's close, Rod's Royal Oak Diner, then that's the worst one, but it's the closest one.
Right.
And then Metropolitan was like, or the Metropolis on 112 was like, if you were over in Patchogue, you would go to the Metropolis Diner, which was kind of in the middle, but we had options. Like and even when we used to record Knockback back in the day in person, we used to go to the diner in the middle of the night all the time in your area, and you live in like kind of the burbs, you know? So I missed that. And I was trying to kind of guide Micah a couple of times. I was like, let's go to a diner. Let's go to a diner. And she wasn't really into it. So she wasn't like feeling well or whatever. And I was just like, I would love to just go sit at the diner. But the California diner on Long Island on Sunrise Highway.
Oh, dude, one of the best.
That's one of the great
ever.
diners of all time.
It really is one. I feel like it's going to be the cockroach of places. Like there's no way that place is ever going anywhere. It's going to outlive all of us. And yeah, I missed the diner too, Kyle. That diner we used to go to late night in the Philly burbs closes at 8:30 now. It's ridiculous. I'll drive that in the summertime. It's still light out.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like when you used to get to put the bed at 7 and you hear all the kids still playing outside. That was the place where Dagan and I would constantly go and get the same waitress, but she never knew who we were.
She was shot. Totally shot. Sweet, but there was clearly something wrong with her. It was like she would just introduce herself every time.
It was like Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. It's like we were just getting her fresh every time we met her, you know?
She was either shot or a comic genius. And I mean, she's probably not a comic genius.
Dude, do you remember when we were in there? I don't remember the exact details, but there were like drunk dudes there and they were kind of giving her a hard time. And Dagan and I looked at each other being like, are we going to have to like, because these guys were getting shit out of us. It's like, but like on like principle, do we have to say something or do something? And it could kind of calm down at the perfect time for us to not have to get involved. Because I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. We can't sit here and like listen to this. But this guy in the Phillies hat's going to beat the shit out of me, no doubt. You know, like
I was like, just our luck. You know what? The other thing, Kyle, I have to shout out. I don't know the name of the place. We used to go to that New York style diner in Santa Monica all the time.
Right. What was that place called? That was a good place. That was like they had that was like where Larry David used to go and shit like that.
Yeah. Well, it's in the show sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
It's in Curb occasionally.
It is because like I didn't realize this until I lived there and even really left and started watching it again where I'm like, holy shit, like this was filmed where I lived in Santa Monica. How did I miss? But I happened to have lived there when they weren't doing any episode, like, or they were just revving it back up. I was like, this is like the sidewalk outside of my apartment, or like this is the crosswalk down the street. It's so strange, you know?
Yeah, you missed it.
I just totally missed it because that is because that's part of the humor of the show is that they live on the West Side and they never want to go anywhere because they can't, you know?
Right. Yeah,
like whose office are you going to go to? Where are you going to go meet someone at different dinner? The parties you have to go to and all that kind of stuff. It's all about being stuck in Santa Monica. Anyway, yeah. What was that diner called though? It was really good. I used to go there. It was
great.
Yeah,
one of the great. And I feel like that's one of the institutions that's not going anywhere either. You know, genuine, like authentic food and just a little taste of. I only spent 4 or 5 days at a time in LA, but gives you a little taste of home. You know, just like comforting enough. Like, all right, it's like palm tree overload, sunshine overload, the West Coast vibe. No offense, Brad. I love California. I really do. But you want a little taste of home, you're getting a little homesick, go to that spot. Just the interior, the something about it, you know, and everything just reeked of the East Coast.
Fat person move at a diner. I used to do it at that diner. And these are you kind of feel out diners and you realize you can get away with almost anything. Right. So because it's like all day food all day. Like, oh, I want my burger with hash browns or whatever, like that kind of shit. But here's the move. Burger on an egg everything bagel.
Oh.
Okay.
Think it through. You know?
Yeah, I'm not mad
I would get the
at
burger. I'd be like, can I have the burger, please? Like a cheeseburger, raw onion, of course, on my cheeseburger. Egg everything bagel instead of a bun, please.
What are your toppings on there?
You got just American cheese, onion, ketchup.
Raw onion.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Ketchup.
That's it.
Cheese.
That's all you need.
I'm not mad. As bagel as the bread. I mean, bagel as the bread. Who's going to deny that? Right? Bagel is literally. Oh, you know what else I wanted to share with you guys? Do you know? People may know this trick, but I'll tell you this about New York, specifically bodegas and delis, because there's so many. You could just spit and you hit one, right? I'll tell you the way to find the best place that makes sandwiches in New York. This may apply to pizza places too, but specifically delis. If you could go to a deli on a weekday, especially during normal operating hours. In other words, where people are going in there for breakfast and lunch. And there's 6, 7, 8 guys working behind the sandwich counter. That's where you want to eat because they have enough. Their product is good enough to be busy enough to pay that many people to make sandwiches and salads. If you go into the spot, and it could be a nice spot from the outside, it could be big. If there's only 2 guys working the sandwich place, don't go there. It's the one that pays, and there's like 2 or 3 cashiers sometimes on a spot that busy. You know what I mean? There's one person wrapping up your order, and there's one person taking your money or credit card. Then there's the crew of guys making you sandwich. That's where you want to go. That's the New York trick. But you only know that stuff by experience, right? It's the things you learn over time. You got to get lucky as somebody who's only going for the weekend, you know. But I always felt like that was a good maybe that applies to places outside New York too. But New York, I always found it was those busy places that had, you know, you go in, there's 12 people on the floor. You know what I mean? It's like this place has to do well,
right,
to pay all these people.
Right. Yeah. I was actually kind of surprised. The place we went, there was 2 guys behind the sandwich place, the sandwich section, 2 guys behind where the register was, and then a random guy stocking. I was like, well, what do you need all these guys for? There's like nothing going on here. I mean, the food was good, but Brad, I don't know if you had it. I know we ate together at the major meals, but anything you want to add here?
I went to this like Irish like pub place the first night I got there, and I got like a burger with bacon on it, like Irish. Dude, it was like the biggest fucking piece of bacon I had ever seen in my whole life. It was just like a huge singular slab of bacon. I've never had bacon like that, like served up that style before. It was really cool, dude. Really, I noticed there's a lot of Irish bars there. Of course, makes sense now when I think about it. But I really liked them, dude. They were very cozy, very nice little pubs going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, the one place we went, we were looking for a bar that we could all talk and hang out, but that didn't have blasting music. So we went to this like this kind of more sports-ish bar, and it was fine. But
it was a mistake.
It
was one of the loudest places we went to because
there was some hockey game on,
and they were going fucking ape shit.
Yeah,
so it was like
it was quiet. It was like quiet, and then like screams, and we're like, oh my god. These sports people, what are they doing?
I could hear better at the barcade every time we went there.
Right.
Oh, how was that, by the way?
It was cool.
Yeah.
I was disappointed the second night we went there because they had X-Men, like the old classic arcade game. They had the 6-player X-Men, and I didn't play it the first night. I was like, all right, fuck yeah, I'm going to hit it up tonight. This is the night. But we went there, and it's just not working. I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because me and Dustin were looking for stuff to play together. And there wasn't like a lot of good co-op stuff to play, which is a bummer. I played a lot of Street Fighter Alpha 2 though, which was fun. It had been a while since I played that.
Classic.
Yeah, so that was sick.
Yeah, we were looking for something to play, and then I ended up just stealing Brad's tokens to play Crazy Taxi.
Yeah,
and it was I'm surprised it was a standing.
It was
variant.
a stand-up one, dude.
Oh,
it's like the
I had
half-step.
not used before, so it was halfway, but it was still nice.
Still Crazy Taxi.
Yeah.
Wow, that's it. The barcade. Yeah. Did you guys ever stumble into a bar? You're with your squad. You want a quiet place to talk, and you just end up in the towny bar with like the 2 guys, like the 2 normies that are always in there that are just sitting at the bar, and you just feel like you just walked into like the record scratch.
Yes.
Like you don't belong.
Oh
in
yeah,
this
I've been
spot.
to several dive bars like that.
Just like like they don't really even want you in there type of thing. It's like you're bringing business to the tune of 6 or 7 other people, but they're just like, you know, you walked into a spot where you're not really welcome. Then what do you do in that situation? You just see it through, or do you walk out?
You see it through, dude. Like, fuck off, Bill, at your table, all right? You can put up with this for like a couple hours.
There's a bar like that right near my house that is a sports bar, and it has I see the same cars out front every time. I've been in there a few times. It's cool. You can still smoke inside. They got the popcorn machine that looks like it has never been cleaned once.
That's just illegal, right? To smoke inside now, like no matter what. Like, so they're just doing it.
No, you still can. It's just
cool. In Pennsylvania you can. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you still can. Sir, I can't remember the exact regulations, so there's a lot less of them. I think they have to be purely bars for the most part. But yeah, last time I was there, someone had their small dog there. The dog was walking around on the counter. All kinds of shit.
Rules.
There's like a couch in there that you definitely don't want to put a black light on. But they got the touch tunes. You know, you load up some Creed on there, get a couple beers with the boys. You're having a fantastic time. A few ciggies. Oh yeah, it's nice. You know, when it hits, it hits. But other times, I mean, people have been stabbed there and all kinds of stuff. So you know, you roll the dice just like anything else in life. But
have you been to Vegas, Dustin?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, it sounds like to me you would just fucking love Vegas because you can just smoke anywhere.
The problem when I was in Vegas, it was right when I got married. And so we didn't have a lot of money, but Holly was there for like a class presentation thing. So I need to go back and I want to go with the boys and then just smoke everywhere, drink everywhere. I mean, that sounds ideal in every way.
Where else can you do it?
So,
yeah, absolutely. Brad, do you end up over in Vegas a lot? I mean, I know it's not.
I've been to Vegas a lot. My grandparents lived there when I was younger, so I would go there at least like twice a year. But as I was older, I mean, so I saw Vegas from the younger perspective also. But of course, I've been there when I'm older too, and it's cool. I mean, Vegas is just fucking dirty and sketchy a lot of times. So there's good fun there, but yeah, you just gotta go to the right places, I guess, like anywhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we used to Atlantic City, from what I know, is in shambles, but we used to have our small little West Coast approximation of Vegas, but I think it's largely.
Yeah,
I haven't been there in like 10 years, but from what I understand, I'm always close to it. I could see it from the beach, just look up north. There's Vegas. But as I understand, it's not. I think it's even worse. I mean, there's Atlantic City, but you know what I mean? I think it's worse than Vegas.
Yeah, maybe.
Just kind of a shame.
Yeah. Well,
what do you think, Dust? Are you satisfied? This is a fun one. I feel like I could talk about this one all day.
Yeah. No, I'm satisfied. I don't know if anyone else had anything else, but just to conclude, shout out to Katz's Deli. Awesome place, so worth the price of admission. Check it out when you're in New York.
Yeah, if you have the balls to charge for $30 for a sandwich, you better be good, and it is.
Yeah,
super good. Lives up to the reputation. Legendary, my friends. All right, now listen. I have my spinner. I'm going to insert myself in the number 2 spot rather than just say I'm going to go last. All right, make it exciting. So Colin's 1. I'm 2. Brad is 3. Ready, guys? Here we go. Give it a proper spin. It's number 2.
Oh,
well, isn't that convenient?
All right.
Lucky 2.
I guess I'll take it up, my friends. All right, so we're talking about, again, everything's kind of plugged in retroactively to Sacred Symbols 300 in New York, which was just less than 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to talk to you guys about the fans, because I'm always taken aback by the LSM faithful, the listeners, people that watch us, the people that support us. And the people that come out to see the shows are the hardcore of the hardcore, right? This was my 3rd show, my 3rd live event for Last Stand Media. So the first one was Butler/Pittsburgh, and that was super fun. And then we did Houston last year in 2023, and a lot of people came out for that. And the funny thing is, there's dozens of people that come out to all these, no matter where they are. And I'm always struck by the kindness and the support and the fact that what we do on the podcast, just entertaining people and talking shit and having fun, means so much to people. I mean, I'm looking at 3 guys. You're no strangers to that. You have fan bases. You have a community of people that love you and support you. And it's moving to me. And it's weird for me. I know I've mentioned this on the shows before, but I'm in this weird, but also kind of cool sort of vantage point. My POV is that I kind of, when I'm in the live events, I feel like I'm part of it and I'm immersed and engaging with the fans and everything like that. And I understand they're there for me as well as everybody else. Right. So I'm not acknowledging that, but I also have this sort of out of body experience where I feel like I'm watching it from the outside in as a fan myself. And I think partially because it's not, podcasting is not really my livelihood. It's not what I do for a living. And I feel like I live these 2 lives as an animator and a podcaster. So I feel like I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But again, not in a negative way, in kind of a cool way where I'm kind of observing as much as I'm part of it. And I'm always struck by the kindness of the fans. You know what I mean? Like the people that come out, travel at great expense, take time off from work, sacrifice, maybe time with the family or time to be doing other things to come out and support us and meet us and shake our hands and have their Sharpies ready to sign their stuff and all that kind of stuff. It means the world. It really does. Like it all culminates when we do what we do with the shows, the various podcasts and stuff. We know we're talking to an audience. Often we're not streaming, so not in real time, but we know it's for a community of people that are listening and watching, right? But it's very one-sided because they get to see us and they get to listen to us, but very rarely do we get to see them and listen to them. So it's these very special 1 or 2 times a year that we get to engage in a real human conventional way. And it's always so neat to me. And it means it just means so much. And it means so much to see how much it means to them, if that makes sense. So just in that meet and greet line with the VIPs before the show, and that, it took a few hours to get through everybody, just meeting and shaking hands and having a few cordial words and how nice and how sweet everybody is. I think 3 or 4 different people thought to bring me a bag of sunflower seeds, which I thought was hilarious. You know what I mean? It was multiple people. I got this. I wanted to share this with you guys. Somebody gave me this hat, my muffin hat. Can you see it?
Oh, I remember you opening that.
Yeah.
Like a little muffin, like a little cupcake. You can see the sprinkles on there, right? So super cute. And yeah, people are just so thoughtful. And I was thinking about it that day on Sunday as I was engaging with these people. And, you even, especially you guys must go through this too. Like you could see people are tentative to come up to you. And it's just weird. It's just a strange feeling for me. It's something that's hard for me to get used to, and I'm sure you guys experience this to an even much larger degree, but even for the people that act like they way with me, I just want to reach out to them and be like, dude, I'm just a guy. Like, let's talk, let's chop it up. Like, you know what I mean? That's why I'm here. That's why you're here. It's so much fun. But it got me thinking, it would be fun. I know you guys doing your podcasts and having the following you have and how meaningful what you do is to a community of people. And how much your voices are appreciated, not just as gamers, though, but as personalities to a person, not just the 3 people I'm looking at, especially you guys, but also Chris and Cog, Maddie, who we missed, Gene, Micah, everybody, right? Every single person in LSM. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool? Let me ask Dustin, Brad, and Colin. I like this cross-section of people specifically. Who are the people that you guys would go out and take a little time off work? Colin might be angry. But take a little time off work, pony up for the plane ticket, the train ticket, right? Sacrifice time with family or hobbies or do other things to go out and see what podcasts or podcasters. And then as I emailed you guys, if not a podcaster or a podcaster, what artist or actor or musician or band would you want to be in the same room with to shake their hand and say, hey, I love what you do. I appreciate you. Let's snap a photo. Let's get a selfie. Can you sign my CD? Can you sign my DVD? Can you sign my game? I just want to toss it to you guys and just see, because as a fan myself of you guys, I'm channeling our fans as well and our listeners and our community. I'm always interested to see, like, let's say you're a fan of Tom Cruise, right? Who does Tom Cruise want to meet, right? Who does Jack Nicholson want to meet? Right? Who does I don't know, insert person here. You know what I mean? Like who does my favorite star?
And do they finagle things to meet those people because they're powerful enough to really meet whoever they want?
Right.
Well, that's the thing. Look at you going up to Cortland for Jets camp, right? Kind of taking, right? It's you got.
Dude, I'll take that all day, every day. I'm like, I'll be there, dude. Like, I'll be there with fucking bells on. You better believe it. I'm gonna be there. It's gonna be fucking awesome. I'm excited about it. So excited about it.
That's sick.
Well, if you think about you, Kyle,
yeah,
right, and this could apply to everybody on LSM, really. There's a chance some pro football players listen to the pod.
Yeah,
right?
I don't out any. There are a few famous listeners that I don't tell really anyone about that I've known over the years, and they weren't like major people, but like there are pro athletes that listen to the show. Like there are,
cool.
Sacred Symbols specifically, but like our stuff, let's say,
right?
And we have like famous. We have like a series of famous listeners, or just like YouTube famous listeners, or content creators that are much bigger than us that listen to us, that even got inspired by our work at IGN and stuff, which is really cool. And I've never been very big. That's the thing, is that I'm not very famous at all. I'm just well known in this specific niche of video game coverage, and people do recognize me. I was recognized at the airport. I was saying on Sacred Symbols when I was coming back, and I'm just not out and about very much. And I was also saying, Dig, that my theory is that people that know me, because there are definitely people that live in this area, no doubt, that listen to us, because we even ship things to people like in our town, you know?
Sure.
So I was saying like, these are the kinds of people I think that know us well enough and know the content well enough to know like they're close to home base and to not even really connect with a person if you see them or whatever, you know? Because I definitely get stared down sometimes by people.
Oh,
like,
you could tell people are recognizing you.
Yeah,
See,
like,
that never
or you're just
happens.
awkward, you know, but probably not that. So,
Dude, well, Kyle.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go.
I was just gonna say no. You finish first before you turn it back over to me.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say. I think as far as like your question, I have gone out of my way to like do things and see people, specifically musical acts, specifically 311.
Oh yeah.
You know, I when I was a freshman in college, I had nothing. I had like nothing, and Ramon and I literally just got on a plane in New Orleans and just went and saw 311 Day. And we had no plan. Like we had like just a small hotel room. We like had no idea how we were going to get to the show. And I remember us leaving the show and having no idea how we were going to get back from the show to the hotel because it was kind of like in the middle of nowhere. And
I love
just
that.
kind of like doing what we wanted to do for, you know, being young and stupid. And it was exciting and it was interesting. And I guess I was reading your email and I was thinking about it because we sent our email around to each other, kind of like what our topic's going to be. And so we can kind of ponder. And I was like, the only show that I listened to where I would go out of my way to meet them or try to like go see them live is Around the NFL, which I've talked about that show many times. I think that show we have a lot of crossover audience. They're way bigger than we are, but they work for the NFL. But it's 4 guys. It was 4 guys. It's 3 guys now. One of them passed away. And I think I had recently said on another show that like I actually cried like a baby when that guy died.
You did say that.
Like it was like Chris Wessling was his name. He died of cancer.
Yeah.
And he died. So he was like on and off the shows and he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And yeah, I remember being in bed just like crying when I found out about it. And I always say that Around the NFL is when people line up by the hundreds to shake our hands, or like remember Dustin, you were there too. Oh no, Dagan, you left, I think, inexplicably. When we went to Pennsylvania for the first show, we signed for like 6 hours with people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the next day in the park.
Yeah, like, and it was like we sat there for 6 hours as hundreds and hundreds of people hung out with us and got pictures and we signed things and we shot the shit and all of that. And I respect the shit out of that, and I think that's so cool and that's amazing.
It's insane.
And it's what's funny about it is it's just a very small fraction of our audience. And so it would make sense that you yourself wouldn't fall into too many groups where you would have a similar fandom. But Around the NFL for me is that kind of podcast. And I've noted many times that it is a very similar podcast to Sacred Symbols, where, and it's not intentional. I actually didn't listen to them when I started Sacred Symbols. I started listening to them a little bit after. And it's not nearly as time wasty. Like they don't just go forever because they work for, it's like a TV show and stuff too. And so they don't have time to like bullshit too much, but they are insanely funny and they've been doing the show for 12 years. So it's like very personal.
That's so cool.
And it's like a show you get so much out of by never missing episodes and getting the inside jokes and the momentum. And a lot of I bust Dustin's balls on the show a lot. And a lot of that energy is kind of like the way that they treat each other on that show too, where they like try to start fake drama with each other or, you know, have like, you know, silly fights that are obviously like a wink and a nod or whatever. And
I love that. Create
like these tensions and all these kinds of things. And there's these through lines. And the one thing that they do that I would love for us to do, although I think it can get a little hacky, but not with them, is that like they have a soundboard that they use and it's always changing. So it's never like the same sounds. They'll like often just clip out funny things that football players say in interviews and then just like have that playing in the background as they say certain things. It's just a very funny,
it's not done in editing. It's done on the spot.
Yeah, it's done on the spot by like their producer. Okay. And right. You know, like just stupid things, like things I won't even say them because you wouldn't find them funny. None of you like football, but they're funny and they're stupid. And so that's the one show I was thinking of where I'm like, yeah, they do live shows every so often. They're just not in our neck of the woods where I'm like, I'm a big fan of those guys. I think they're really funny. They're inspirational as a fellow podcaster. It would be cool to dice it up with them as a podcaster to like pick their brain or whatever.
Sure.
But how many people go up to them and be like, oh, I have a podcast, you know, like you wouldn't even want to like be like,
that's probably not your angle.
Yeah. It's like, and I do talk to one of them. A couple of them follow me on Twitter, but I do talk to one of them on DM once in a blue moon. But yeah, like it would be fun to just go see them and vibe with the kind of show they do. Cause they do such a funny and their show is similar to Sacred Symbols, where I'm like, it shouldn't ever really be very serious. No matter, and obviously football isn't very serious, and video games aren't very serious. So it covers the news in every game and the real the trades and all these kinds of things, and it gets deep into the nitty gritty. But it's never like 2 seconds away from being funny or silly in some way. You know?
That's good.
Yeah,
it's both. It's entertaining and informative, like, you know, and you guys, and it's the personalities, and it's the interaction with the different, like you and Chris and Dustin have on your show, and everybody has on their respective shows. And it means a lot, Kyle, because what I was going to say to you was that you're very much like me, where you adopt that philosophy of, I don't really want to meet my heroes. It's just too much of a risk versus reward thing, where I would just rather admire from afar for the most part.
Sure.
So unless that fandom was such that if so-and-so died, I would cry. So, you know what I mean? It's that one or two people or groups of people that mean that much. Let me ask you this, though. And I'll say this, what I always do with the fans, I always try to take an opportunity. And I was able to do this at the beginning of our Q&A while Ben was working out the kinks with the audio. I got to see where people were coming from. And in this show, you know, we're in NYC, we're in Manhattan. People were coming from New England, tri-state area, of course. We had a guy from Kansas. We had a guy from North Dakota, New Mexico. Our friend from Seattle was out. Florida was in the house. London was in the place. People were coming from all over the place. So let me ask you this, Kyle. Let's say Micah sort of ponied up for your birthday and said, you're going to go see the live show, but they're going to be playing in Portland or Austin or Chicago. Would you go? Would you want to do? Would you go to the VIP if they had one to shake their hands and just quickly say, hey, what's up? You know, I love the show.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, because I'm just a very specific kind of person where, like, if they played here or in the Virginia area, maybe I would definitely go and check them out. Just like when a band comes through and it's like, yeah, I'll go, you know, see them if they're here. Like when I saw the Gym Blossoms and stuff last year, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely go see that, since I can go like 15 minutes away from my house and I don't have to go very far. I'm just very anti-travel at this point. But it's funny you asked that, because I wouldn't do it for them, but the one thing that I would travel pretty much anywhere at any time for is if Dredge played again. And they haven't played in like 12 years. And it's still within the realm of possibility that they will. And I think that if they do announce it, they would play in California. So I've kind of played that out in my mind already, where I'm like, I'm going to that show. So, you know, that I'll have to go well out of my way at great expense, like you said in your email, to go see them. So that's actually the example of something that I would go way out of my way for. Because even 311, it's like, if I found out they were going to break up or they were going to retire and they were going to do one more tour, I would probably go see them quite a few times.
Sure.
But especially because they always change their set list up and stuff like that. But if I was really going to have a last opportunity to see like a band like Dredge or whatever, I would be there. You know, so
I love that.
Yeah,
I love, and you know, my intention with this topic was as a tribute to the fans for everything that they do, and flipping the script and saying, all right, you guys came out to support us. What about your favorite cats? Your favorite LSM cats? Who would they like? You know, who do they feel that way about? You know, which is actually kind of a cool thing. And who would they come across the country to see, or come from London? That I wish I remembered his name. Does anybody remember his name? He was also very present before and after the show. I remember he was talking to Mom for a little while, and I believe he was in town only for the weekend and was flying back to England the next day.
Yeah, he was. I talked to him outside. I don't remember his name. I remember his face though, and I remember him telling me. I asked him, I'm like, you're like British, or he's a dual citizen, which is cool. So it's like his parents.
Oh, that's right.
I think his parents are British, but he was born here, and then they stayed here, and he went back or something like that. Something interesting.
They're still in Philly.
Yeah, something like that.
I think he was saying, right? Something like that. Yeah. I mean, it means the world. And when you see, I mean, if people came from Long Island to come into the show, it means a lot. But when people come across the country, and that overlapping of now 3 different live shows in 3 different parts of the country, and seeing some of those same faces 3 different times, you know, in Texas, Pennsylvania, and New York City, it was like, and I'm sure a lot of those people were recurring in the Richmond show too. It's like, wow, there are some really hardcore individuals. And it's so interesting to see how much it means to them. I'll tell you guys one funny thing that happened to me. I'm not even sure if you guys are aware of this. Mom and PJ and Kim, his fiance, were in earshot when this happened. But I had a young couple who listened to the show. I say young, they're probably in their 30s, who on the way out of the VIP, shouted to me from their seats, "Oh, Dagan, we love the shows. We're a big fan. We're from Sayville, this town on Long Island, where a neighboring town where we grew up, where I always hung out. That I hung out with all the Sayville guys and girls. Like that was my adopted town because everyone in my high school in my town hated me. But I was very popular in Sayville, so Sayville was my town. And we're from Sayville, and I was like, "Oh, we got to talk later," And I knew they were VIP, so we can have an opportunity to chat for a little bit. And it turned out to be a guy and his fiance. Super cool. Got to shake their hands and talk to them a little bit, but the line, Ben was keeping the line moving. We only had so much time to talk to everybody, unfortunately. And then later on, it was either after the show. I think it was after the show, not between the VIP and the show. It was after. They came up, and the girl in front of her boyfriend said to me, which now I'm not used to this. She said, "You're so much more handsome in person. You're a total dilf."
Oh,
which I had never heard.
Goodness.
I had never heard this before.
Wow.
I never heard this term before.
Oh.
Immediately knew what it meant. Obviously, mom's standing there. I thought it was hilarious. I'm thinking two things at this point. I'm thinking, first of all, this is not one of those venues, which I believe was the setup in Richmond, where you could, there was the option to buy alcoholic beverages. This was not that type of venue. So nobody was drinking in here unless they brought in a flask or something. So she couldn't have been drunk. The second thing was she was with her man. So now I'm thinking about, is this her brother? Right. So I'm thinking about now, because I don't know if they introduced themselves as a couple. I didn't remember. So I went home thinking, it was funny. It was cute. I told her, in person, I was like, that's a really nice compliment. I'm not used to that. I'm a 50-year-old man. Like I haven't been called attractive probably in 20 years. You know what I mean? So I'm going home and riding the train with Mom and Larry back to Jersey to go back home. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, was that her brother? Was that a friend? Blah, blah, blah. Well, they DM'd me later on, a day or two later. I'm like, thank you. The guy DM'd me, and he was like, thank you. It was so nice to meet you. Me and my fiance really enjoyed the show, whatever. So it was confirmed. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, they're just cool like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're swinging.
I was going to say, do they have like a pineapple emoji in their,
flamingos
description or whatever?
Yeah.
Flamingos, yeah, that's it.
I'm going to be honest with you. Made my entire night. Made my entire. I mean, who doesn't want a little shot in the arm like that?
Yeah, that's a nice compliment.
So yeah, next show, everyone make sure you let Dagan know he's very fuckable.
Yeah, Dagan, I want to fuck you. That feel great. He said it. I
like the courage. I like the audacity, and she didn't. Obviously, she wasn't saying it in an offensive way. She was very sweet. She had that. That's when you're in that position, right? Even if something's going through your head to say something a little off color, you got to think about a lot of things, like, and including who's your audience. I guess she just knew I was cool like that. You know what I mean? Hey, I could use the compliment type of thing. Sure. So I'll take your guys' stories too. And of course, I'm going to throw it over to you, Brad, first. Mm-hmm. Reflections from the show, meeting the fans. This was your first one. So this was extra. This was your first one with LSM. Yeah. You come from other places very similar to LSM. And then also, I want to know, who are those people that you would like to shake their hands, and you would be not only at the show, but would you pay the extra expense for the VIP to be able to go face to face with these people, this person or people?
Well, I'll start with people I would meet, I guess. I was at PSX when I was back at Game Trailers years ago, and I went to the Kind of Funny thing with my old coworker, Brandon, and Colin was there, and I talked to like everyone except Colin, because Colin gave me the vibe. I was like, he doesn't really want to talk to you right now. I don't think he wants to be here. So I was like, I'll just leave him alone.
I found it. That was PSX, you said?
Yes.
That was probably the most overwhelmed I was. Those two PSXs specifically were.
Oh, dude, I saw you guys walking. You're like the fucking president walking through those halls.
It was very
security around you.
I don't really like that kind of thing. Like Greg really loves that kind of stuff. But like, where it's like, here's like your 7 security guards, and we're going to make a bubble around you. Like they shut down the PlayStation store, right? So I can shop in it.
Yeah. I was like, wow, these fuckers.
I was like, this is not. That's like, we were talking about like where I'm famous. Like that's where I'm famous.
Yeah,
is
you're
PlayStation.
like a religious figure. There.
Yeah, it's
You're
like PSX.
Pope.
That's about it. That's where I look like if someone just saw that, I was like, holy shit. And I was way out of my element there. So if I put off a vibe like that, I'm sorry. I've been in many situations where I'm like, I don't want to be in this situation right now. I do not want to be here.
I know. I could tell. And that's fine. Yeah. But I could just tell. I was like, oh, I'll just leave him alone.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm totally cool with that. But yeah, Dustin, were you there also?
So that was that Square Enix sponsored. What was it? It was Just Cause?
Maybe.
Yeah. We had stopped in and I saw the meet and greet line. And I was with Brandon, who, I mean, quite frankly, no offense, Colin, did not give a single fuck about Kind of Funny. I was like, well, we've been out all day. I don't need to wait here in line to meet these guys. So I kind of stopped in. That was a weird party thing because we kind of waited around for a little bit. And I'm guessing you and Brandon were there too, but I didn't know who you were at all at that point.
Right.
But I remember I saw Adam Kovic there. And this was pre him not being in the industry anymore.
Dude,
and
I met him there through Brandon, and he gave me the weirdest vibe. I was immediately like, I don't like this person. Immediately. Yeah. And I rarely get that feeling. I was fucking right, dude. Spot on. I sniffed him out, dude.
Yeah. But I think it was the next PSX, which I'll hold off till it's my turn that I saw you. But
yeah, anyway. Colin, you guys did some like beyond live shows, right, at IGN?
Mm-hmm. 200, 300, and we did like a bunch of panels at various shows too.
My friend and former coworker lived in SF at the time, so I was like, oh shit, maybe I should just go to that too. That'll be fun. But I just never ended up going to it. But I was thinking about it.
Yeah, we had some events at the IGN offices. They're not in those offices anymore, I don't think, but they were huge, and we had lots of space to accommodate people. So it was, that was. I have no problem doing live shows, and I have no problem meeting people either. But it is that similar situation where, like you were describing, like who the fuck are these people? Like I don't give a fuck about this. Like I feel self-conscious of that. Not that I'm embarrassed about it, but that I'm conscious that there are probably people with some of these people that don't want to be doing this and are doing it because they love them or whatever, or they're coming along with them. And so I just try to be as gregarious and friendly as I can be, to everyone so that they have a good experience. So that when, like Dagan was saying, I don't want to meet certain people ever because it's too risky. And I don't want to like ruin someone's impression of me by giving them a bad experience,
Well, I'll say you did very well at our live show. You were very energetic and welcoming to people, it seemed like to me. So fucking nailed it there, at least.
Yeah, thanks. These are our people. I mean, these are like amongst our most vital fans. And I said this on a recent show, but I said this in our Discord, and it's, I guess, put in very Colin linguistics, but it's like, this is important for us to do to like humanize the data.
Mm-hmm.
That at some point it's hard not to just see numbers. That's like what we see all day, every day are numbers. How many people are watching this? How much money are we making on this? How many units did we sell? And it just becomes numbers. And doing something like this, I think puts like a face behind some of the digits, which I think is it's important for all of us to do it. It's a good excuse for us to get together and see each other, but it's also important to like, touch people in some way,
Oh,
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. You did. I agree with Brad though. There was something you were extra. You always do an amazing job. I mean, I was talking about that with Mom, Colin. I'm not, obviously I'm a little biased, but
no, tell me more.
You as a consummate entertainer. I think everybody on LSM, but it was a Sacred Symbol show, so I'll stick to you three. Like, there's something special about the dynamic and about the individuals, but also you guys as a unit. But you are such a consummate entertainer that even I know you, so I know even when you're not feeling it, you could fake the funk, right? And I think all three live shows that I've been a part of, you were enormous. But this one, there was something genuine in that I felt like you were actually feeling very good. I'm not saying you weren't feeling good in PA and Houston, but there was something where not only were you on like you normally are, but there was something really authentic about something. There was like a light. I don't want to sound corny, but it seemed grounded in something.
Yeah, New York.
And I knew from your language, from what you were saying about in that moment, talking about being excited, being visibly excited about talking about the next live shows later in the year or whenever they're going to be in the various locations and everything. There was something really special about this one. And maybe it had to do with New York and just having all your people there, a level of comfort. Mom and dad were both in the house, some friends that could have played into it. But yeah, it was an extra special one for me of the three.
Yeah, cool, man. I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah, to me, actually a major reason why I felt pretty loose was just having so little to prepare, and you just have to. It's only acceptance is the only thing. Like, you're going into this and you don't know what's going to happen, but you have to be there. And that made me feel really light. And I delivered that to Ben, where I was like, I really appreciate other people kind of doing this, so I can just kind of roll in. And then he told me that it was really stressful and that we probably going to need like some more help on that front, or like to spread the field. So I'm like, that's totally fine, because I would rather have that feeling of, there was something interesting about not knowing that I think made the show authentically spontaneous. Because we now, I will say about the live show, the Jeopardy angle of it was awesome. And I told Ben already, I'm like, I feel like this is a show in and of itself, not only a live show, but like a show we can do digitally. And I do want one of the two live shows to be Sacred versus Duke. Like a trivia show, which I think would be cool, with some other features, but that would be like kind of what it would be. I already visualized the poster. Might want to balance the teams by giving them a third person.
Yeah, give them Brad.
Yeah, Brad.
No way, I'm the host, dude.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I was gonna have Brad. Like, right. So if that happens in San Diego, we'll obviously have Jaffe on the show. And I was thinking maybe we would give him to the Dukes, but he's too chaotic of an agent for hosting the show.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I did feel really good, and yeah, part of it was being in New York. Part of it is just that, and I it's like, not to be too dramatic, it's like I'm unwinding myself from a lot of these meds that I've been on since 2017, 2018. And it can't be understated, like, how I'm still on all of them, but at much lower doses, like substantially lower doses. I've cut back 75% on Lexapro, 75% on Ativan.
Big deal.
50% on hydroxyzine.
Dude, that's a lot.
And so I barely, like, I can actually pretty much cut off of Ativan at this point. They think that it's probably not even doing anything for me anymore, but like it's an addictive drug. So you want to like kind of wean yourself off of it slowly. But I think a lot of it is that I'm just feeling things more, not to the extent that I really, that's destructive for me, where I get really low, but I was like unable, I think, for some years, and I'm really grateful for it, to be honest, that I was unable to like overreact. I think that's what got me out of a bad situation in California. That's what got me to move. Like all of those things where it's like, I am so medicated that I'm like focused in on this thing and like I can't be moved and swayed. But there's like a downside to that, in that you lose the highs too, and like the things you should be excited about. And I must admit, I was excited about that show, especially because I don't travel very much anymore, but I traveled constantly, obviously, when I was a journalist. And we went to Houston early last year, and then I didn't go anywhere really. And then a couple weeks before the show in New York, Micah and I went to Boston, and that kind of just got my feet wet again, and being like, oh yeah, you kind of like, it's like I've flown literally hundreds of times, and at some point you psych yourself out and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's like always bad and it's always awful. And then you do it a couple times, at least in these situations, and you're like, that was fine. Especially leaving Richmond, it's like such a small airport. It's like, this is really almost irrelevant, you know? So I think I had like a little bit of a looser vibe just generally that I probably wouldn't have had if New York came first. So yeah, I'm anxious to do the other shows this year. Hopefully we can get those locked down and meet more people. That would be really great. It's not a big moneymaker for us by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's important. I honestly think it's not even time well spent. Like if you're going to dissect it as like, how much money do we make on this? And is it really worth it? It's like, no, it's not worth it. Like, to make like all the effort, I'll be honest with people, it's like all the effort, like all of the things we had to pay for. We had to pay for everyone's lodging, fly everyone places, put them up, pay for incidentals, get the venue, order the merch, do all these kinds of things. I think we will maybe make $8,000 to $10,000 in profit on the show. But think about all of the time that like it moved us away from our production schedule. It fucked that up. Ben was obsessed with this show for a couple of months, so that was like all of his time. It's not really worth it, you know? So I don't want people to think that we're doing it for that reason. We're really just doing it because we think it's fun. And if we make a little money along the way, that's great. But
Yeah.
like when we played the National, I think we made something like $10,000, and like when a band plays the National, they will make $200,000. So it's
Wow.
a different,
Holy shit.
like
That's a big discrepancy.
because you can like fill that place in and sell lots of booze and lots of merch, and there's just gonna be more people and higher prices, and people make a lot of money touring. We're just not a body that's able to do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to be able to like make real money touring. That would be sick, but we don't. So I just want people to know it's like it is done for like a, it's not the path of least resistance, let's say, but it's fun.
Yeah. I just love like these people listen to us go on and on for so many hours and hours. Like it's so nice not only to see them, but just let me give you the floor for 2 minutes. Let me listen to you. You've listened to me go on at length, over the course of years. Let me listen to what you have to say for 2 minutes. It's so nice to kind of reverse it, to be able to see who you're talking to. Just as a podcaster, it's just like, yeah, that's the benefit. That's for me. It's like having that 1 or 2 occasions a year to like really have an interaction. Not I interact with you guys, but with them.
Yeah.
The eyes and ears. So Brad, let me throw it back to you, man. Where were you?
Well, I was thinking on who I would like to see, I guess. Also, I've met them before, but AFI is one of my favorite bands. So I got to meet them at like a record signing close to me. And they are all really awesome and stuff like that.
Michael loves them too. You should talk to her about that if you haven't already.
I know. I need to talk to her.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like a celebrity I'd want to meet. I'd love to meet Paul McCartney and just talk to him about music and all that stuff throughout all the years. A legendary artist. He's getting older too. So I don't know how much time he's got left, but I'd love to talk to him. And I think Keanu Reeves would just be awesome to talk to. Not even about movies or anything like that. Just anything. I feel like I could talk to him about gardening or something like that. It'd probably be awesome. He seems like such a fascinating human. I would love to talk to that guy.
He seems so sweet to me that it's 100% real.
Yeah.
Despite his fame and his large, to be like his notoriety and his, that he's iconic and, he was already, but with John Wick, the advent of John Wick, it's like, he's huge.
Yeah.
He's literally been huge for decades. And there's this underlying sweetness and humility that's real.
Yeah. There's a lot of game creators I like to talk to. Most of them are Japanese though. So obviously would it be super easy to talk to them? But I actually got to talk to Jaffe recently on Summon Sign, and I talked to him about Mickey Mania because I played through a lot of on the show, and it was really cool just hearing his insight about like designing that game. It's always fascinating hearing devs talk about their game and like, especially something so old. Jaffe's made a million or so many games. He's a well-known legend, but just like a game I don't hear a lot of people talk to him about was awesome. So that was really fun. I hope I get to do more stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that you asked him about that. I always forget about his affiliation with that.
Yeah, that was one of his first games, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it was cool just to hear his insight, early days and all that stuff. And he was apologizing about like the hit detection and everything like that. It's like, oh, it's fine, dude.
He recently told me Twisted Metal's budget was like $250,000.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Like it's like
that's
like one mid-level
months.
Producer on a Naughty Dog game.
Yeah,
annual salary.
Yeah,
for 1 year,
dude. Yeah, yearly salary. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah,
that's incredible.
In terms of meeting people, though, this time obviously is my first Last Stand event, so it's cool getting to meet like fans and all that stuff, and everyone was super welcoming and really awesome. So I was very grateful for that. Everyone made me feel very welcome and like I was a part of Last Stand already. I didn't feel like I am the new guy, but they didn't treat me like I was the new guy essentially, which is really cool. It was great to like, put faces to names and all that kind of stuff. Like Sean Mason or whatever, kind of seems like a legend.
Yeah, he's a legendary
legend
figure.
Yeah, he's a legendary guy.
Yeah,
100%.
And Hodge and all those guys, Nerd. So it was really cool to meet everyone. I had a great time. It was super nice and very humbling, when people want to talk to you about when you talk about video games and like some dumb shit that we do. It's really cool.
Yeah, what you do means a lot. I'll say 2 things, Brad. I know you were saying, you heard a lot how well you fit in that night, which I 100% agree with. Like you were a natural fit, and the proof's in the pudding. Like you seem like a natural fit from afar on the podcast, but even there in the flesh as a part of that team, it felt like, you had already been there for some time. Like it was just, you know what I mean? It was just, you fell right into it. And I think you feel like a natural extension of I forget that you're even new at this point. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It feels like you've been here for years already.
Maybe it's because I've known Dustin for a couple years already. Maybe a lot of that had to do with it, you know, because we remained friends for years still, even before I joined. So maybe if I'm friends with Dustin, we got along as great as we did, maybe it's more natural that I'd fit in with everybody here anyways. I don't know. Something weird like that.
Well, that's why it was so easy to hire you, because at least I knew and was confident in being like, yeah, he's gonna vibe with us. I know that just from playing Monster Hunter with him, that this is gonna, and listening to you, you know, at Easy Allies, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be just fine. So just to add into your story here slightly, Brad, you mentioned it's always so funny. I don't know a lot of our listeners' names, but I know their Discord names, and that's how they talk to each other when they hang out. You brought up Compulsive Nerd. I talked to him in Houston, and I know I told you this story in New York, but for the audience, he came up to me in Houston and was like, hey, I know you and Brad follow each other on Twitter and you respond to each other every once in a while. You should totally have him on Sacred Plus. That would be so cool. And I was like, yeah, I want to. We're trying to figure it out. You know, we'll see what happens, but it's tough. And then so when we were all at the barcade, I saw you talking to him and I was like, do you remember that conversation in Houston?
Yeah, he was telling me about that too.
Yeah.
It's fucking
totally
crazy.
So
yeah, super crazy.
Yeah, he's a nice lad. No idea. I can't remember. He told me his real name. No idea what it is. So he just goes by Nerd. So.
He goes, my name's Blood, but everyone just calls me Nerd. And I was like, okay, I can remember that.
I'm really bad with names. And
I could be bad
I think
with
I said on
too.
a show I actually started in my neighborhood. When I meet people like neighbors, I would write their names on this list on my fridge.
Colin's list.
Like where I was just like, it's like just not anything about them, but just the names. Like, oh, I'm blah and blah, the couple or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then over time, I did actually end up learning people's names that way. So I thought that was really effective in some sense. But I do the very autistic thing, especially online. And I've always done this since I was at GameFAQs and when I was on IRC and everything. I just don't look at anyone's names when I'm reading shit on the internet. It's so funny. Like I just read what people write, and then people are like, "Oh, who said that?" I'm like, "I really have no idea."
Oh, that's funny.
Or like, I'm this person on. I'm this person on Discord, and I'm like, I don't really know anything. I literally am just looking at the text of like reading what people read, and I've always been like that. And I don't know why that is. Like I don't get to know people's personas very well because like digital personas, because I'm not tuned into that. I'm rather just tuned into the things people are saying. Like when I would scroll through NeoGAF back in the day or Reset Era today, it's like I don't know anyone's names. It's like.
What about their avatar? Would you identify them by that?
Maybe.
I'm better at that.
Yeah.
Seeing a picture. Well, a lot of it I knew from Dustin and Ben kind of talking about everything. So that helped to get me in the loop a lot more.
Yeah. You fit right in.
Yeah, you definitely
really did.
Thank you.
It was very smooth. It was very smooth. It felt very natural. Yeah, man. It was, kudos. I think it was awesome. Now, Dust, as one of the 3 stars of the show, how was the night for you? And, of course, give me all the other things. We want to hear about who you would VIP for.
Yeah, it was a fantastic night. It felt the most natural so far, I guess, just now that I've done 3 other ones now that I was trying to, I don't know. I felt like when I was explaining this to Brad that maybe he thought that I had copium or something because I look extremely nervous. Like the green room in this place was just this tiny box on the side. And we were supposed to just kind of hang out in there. I'm like, I have this pent up energy in me. Like I'm ready to go and I'm not scared. I can't sit in this fucking box anymore. So I was like kind of like
green, right? It was literally green. Wasn't it green?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I definitely probably looked like a nervous wreck, but truly I was just like, let's go. It's go time. Let's get up on stage. Let's make this happen. I'm excited. So I will always think back to our first show where my mom was being nice, but she kind of did me dirty a little bit, making me self-conscious because she said like, oh, ever since you were a little kid, if you were in front of people, the way you would walk up on stage, you'd do it the same way, kind of shy, your shoulders in. And I think I have thought about her telling that to me every show since. So when I walk out, I'm trying to not be like,
push your
big super wide, but I'm trying to like compensate, knowing myself to just kind of be more insular like that. So, but yeah, it's a fantastic show, fantastic meeting everybody. It always feels like there's not enough time, even though we keep trying to add and make more tickets. And I know that's a big thing for a lot of people, is that they're frustrated that our VIP sells out so quick. So, but the issue is just that the more that we add, it means less time per person.
Less
we want to
value.
make sure it's right.
It's like the Federal Reserve printing too much money.
Right. Exactly like that. So yeah, it's tough with VIP because you want to make sure you spend time with everybody. But yeah, it was cool. Of course, doing it in the city was awesome. As far as people that I want to meet, and I guess a little more context, what's cool is that, or kind of just strange, is that I've been on both sides of this for specifically this type of group, and the audience knows a lot of this, but like I met Colin at New York Comic Con, that would have been 2014.
Wow.
So I remember what it's like to try to like meet someone from a podcast. You're like, oh, I don't want to sound like a fucking idiot when I talk to this person, what I do, And Dagan, you were there too, actually, for that, but I didn't know you at all at that time. But yeah, it was at that skyscraper.
Yes.
Party.
Was my mom there?
Yes, she was.
Oh yeah, mom's always on the spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there was also a time. At the press room at PSX, I remember being in there and seeing Brad in there, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's Brad!" And and the audience knows I loved Easy Allies. I was like, I can't talk to Brad; it's too scary for me at this point. I can't. I don't know. Maybe I did talk to you at some point, but
maybe. Yeah.
I always wanted to go to an Easy Allies live show, but they always did it at a weird time that I couldn't make it out for, and it's also just like being in Los Angeles, so expensive for me. Specifically to make it out, so I never got to do that. But it's interesting because specifically these like internet like people in our sphere, now that I'm doing it, it's kind of lost a little bit of its illusion to me. Not that there's nobody that I want to meet in the games media space. It's also partially because I have met some of these people, and some of them it's a don't meet your hero situation. Ooh. Not that anyone was ever a complete asshole to me, but some people weren't exactly the way I expected, I guess, to put it lightly. So in terms of content creators like us, someone that I would pay top dollar to go see do VIP, it's Red Letter Media.
Oh yeah, that's
Absolutely.
A good example. That's a great example.
A
I would do
one.
that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's an awesome one.
And it's so weird because they feel somewhat adjacent to us and not. Obviously, they are many times bigger than us, though it is interesting. They have Patreon way below us there. But in terms of that. Oh, yeah. In terms of views on YouTube, though, I mean, they're the millions. Yeah. But their one guy, Jack, he is a writer for Second Wind. So we're kind of slightly
he was
removed.
wearing a Second Wind shirt in one of the videos I was watching of theirs, actually.
Oh, interesting.
So we're only a few people removed from them.
Dude, I love them. I mean, I gush about them all the time.
Do they tour?
I don't think so.
I don't know if they've ever done a live show.
No, I don't think so. I watched they did a Ghostbuster, the new Ghostbusters recently, like Half in the Bag, and then they did an Andor Half in the Bag, and I'm like, should I or shouldn't I? And I'm like, I'm never gonna watch this shit. So then I watched that last night, and it was great, and they're just so funny. I love Rich Evans so much. Like, love Rich Evans. I would love to talk to him. His laugh is infectious. His attitude about things is so jovial and funny and positive. He seems like a really decent person. They're all great, He does. But I love Rich Evans. I'm like in love with him so much.
Yeah.
His laugh.
That laugh.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about Rich specifically is that 5 years ago it ended. They had a spin-off of Red Letter Media that was focused on games called Previously Recorded that they have since ended. That was, I think it was Rich. What does it say here?
I didn't know about this.
Oh, so Rich and Jack did live streams on Twitch, and they also did their own YouTube videos.
Well,
just about gaming.
Well, let me just say this, Rich Evans, you don't know me, but I've been in the games industry for over 20 years, and I've found a lot of success here. If you ever want to do gaming content, come talk to me.
It'd be amazing.
Come talk to me.
Hit him up.
Yeah. We can make something happen for you, I think. I'm not saying you don't have the means or to do it. You might not have the resources around you to do it, or you might not want to, you guys are all, I know you're all rich. It's fine. Like, that's all good. You deserved it. So you get, comfortable and want to do these different things. So that's no judgment to you. You're wonderful just the way you are. But if you ever want to do gaming content again, come to me, Rich Evans.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing about I said I would do VIP. Those guys, I might be kind of scared to meet. It reminds me of Colin. You talked about meeting, like you could never meet Jerry Seinfeld just because the type of guy he is. Yeah. I feel like with them, I don't know. And that's the thing is that I've read on their dangerous. I know, since I read our subreddit occasionally, and some of the stuff people say there is so out of left field and not the actual reality. But they apparently used to do some conventions and stuff, but some of the interactions they had with people were weird and stuff. So I would be afraid of
weird
saying
for them or weird for the audience. Like, what were they? Did they feel weird?
They felt weird.
Oh yeah, I could believe that. They probably attract an audience somewhat with our crossover, because there's some awkwardness in our audience too from time to time. Sure. But I feel like there's a movie nerd at a different level in some sense than what's going.
Just from Star Wars fans, the heat they probably get. Now, Andor, Mike and Rich were pretty soft on Andor. They liked it. But for the most part, Star Wars, I could see the Star Wars fans getting irate.
Sure. Yeah, if they ever want to do a double billing feature live show, Last Stand Media, Red Letter Media, I mean, we'd be riding their coattails with that one. But
absolutely,
we can make it happen.
Well, open.
I'd love to be. I'd love to be in business with them. I mean, they're actually. I got to be honest with you. They are the one outlet that is like, man, having a space would be kind of cool, huh? But
it works.
They do it in such. First of all, I think they're in Milwaukee, right? So that's, they probably pay them to be there, and then, and we're in a similar place like in Central Virginia where it's like, damn, we can get a space like that for nothing. It's just, I don't want, and I actually learned about them that they didn't even start there, that they ended up all moving there, which is interesting.
I thought they were all from Wisconsin.
No, they're like, they started like in California or Arizona or some weird shit like that. I don't know, something like that.
Okay.
But then I'm like, no, because the big thing is like just having everyone around. If everyone wanted to move to Central Virginia, like, so I always think about it this way, it's never going to happen. But if like all of our key players were like, I'll move to Central Virginia, like I'll move to Midlothian or Chesterfield County or whatever, it's like, okay, then maybe we will do something together. But since that's not a prerequisite or even that important to me, it's just never something that came up. But they're the ones where I look at those different sets, like the sets make me laugh so bad because they're just trash, and they just clearly leave things there for years and then go back onto the set and use it again. And so I just think it's very funny. So when I see like Kind of Funny's or News Place or like these other places, I'm like, this is too much. This is not what I'm thinking. Like if we were going to do something, it would literally be something so shitty, like it's so, but funny.
Fucking warehouse.
Right.
Funny, Kind of Funny's a game show set.
Right. Which is cool. And that's its own thing, but that's never what I've wanted. But when it was funny because I've always been like anti-studio, like we don't need a space, but then I see their space and I'm like, if I can get that kind of space where,
it's great.
Maybe that would be different. And again, the workability, but it's just, we're just too all strewn to the wind. And I think that that's part of like, we would lose. I believe that the content isn't as good as it could be. I've said this before, like the content would be best if we were all together, but each person would lose something that makes them happy off camera or a routine or a way of life that brings a better energy. So it would actually cumulatively be worse if we were all together and forced to be somewhere together. In other words, it just has to happen or it's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen.
Very interesting.
Right. So that's fine.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. I think it does. I think being in the same room does elevate the content because it elevates the dynamic when you're with more than one person. If you're podcasting by yourself, physical space doesn't make any sense. But if you're with a group of 2 or more, it can't hurt. Right. But that trade-off.
If we made twice as much money, I would be able to pay everyone more full-time as opposed to having like a few full-time people and then a bunch of part-time people, like, and then make it worth people's while to maybe that would be something we would talk about. But
patreon.com/last.
But yeah, it's like, but I just don't want that really for people. I think that just comes at a personal sacrifice. Like everyone should be where they want to be. The beauty of the internet is that we don't have to be together. Like we should utilize that and leverage that. And it's only going to get better, I think, these tools and all these different things. So anyway, I'm off on a ramble.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I had any other. Oh, Brad mentioned some musical guests or some musical people to meet, and that's the thing that I've been thinking about recently, trying to figure it out because I did the Billy Martin interview a few months back that was super cool, and I'm wondering if there's
was he kicking up dirt at you at home plate?
What's that? Kicking up dirt?
Not that Billy Martin. Yeah.
Oh, geez. This is some sports.
Sorry, different Billy Martin.
Dude, the amount of sports that you could say so many different things. I just no idea.
I almost didn't even get that one. Don't worry.
But so yeah, the Billy Martin interview was really, really cool. And it made me wonder. I'm like, man, it would be cool to interview more musicians that are also into gaming. Problem is sometimes just figuring out the ones that are into gaming. I found that a lot of the bands I like, so I mean, some of them have Twitters that they post on occasionally, but they kind of their thing is making music and they're not online personalities. And I actually, think that's cool and respectful. But trying to figure out who else could maybe work for that. Because I feel like that would be a lot more fulfilling than a meet and greet. I've done a few band meet and greets, and I've always found them to just kind of be boring. I don't know. Maybe just musicians they're entertainers, but not in their speaking and interacting. It's through their music. So I'm not super interested in that necessarily, but being able to sit down, talk to someone for an hour, that would be awesome. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's about it for me. Red Letter Media. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, that's a great choice,
dude. I mean, I love that. You know what though? I have a hot take here. Like I'm even thinking about Red Letter Media. I'm such a super fan too. I never miss a show. I think Wheel of the Worst might be one of the best things I've ever
seen. That's I was watching one where they broke the wheel.
Yeah, that's the thing. Their wheel just breaks.
Like it won't stop spinning. Shoddy. Like it just keeps spinning. It won't stop. They have me like dying laughing all the time. And I watch it really late at night. Always like I watch Red Letter Media pretty much exclusively between like the hours of 1 and 4 in the morning. So
that's the perfect time.
And it feels so silly. It's just so. I was watching one with the Jesus baby Jesus. Did you see that one? Baby Jesus.
I don't know.
Where it was like the grown ass woman. It was on like Best of the Worst or whatever. Where it's like a grown ass woman who does like this in the 80s who did this like baby. This like one man play where she acts like she's a baby, but she's like really into Jesus. It's like, you got to see it. I was dying watching it.
I don't think I saw that.
It was so good. It's a recent one, I think.
I'm behind. There was a Wheel of the Worst 2 weeks ago that I haven't watched yet. And so that might be on the docket tonight.
Yeah. I don't know if
Friday
I've seen
night
that one either. Yeah. They are the epitome, everybody there, but those three, Mike, Jay, and Rich are like the epitome for me of not having to try hard at all. Mm-hmm. Like it's just, they make it, there's an effortlessness to it.
That's right. That's right. I'm jealous of them. I've said that before. Like I'm not of the out, like they're doing great. Like we do great too. I'm not worried about that. Like the performance of it. I'm jealous of their ability. Like where I'm like, these guys are fucking awesome. Oh, like these guys, I usually, not to be a dick, it's like I don't see much content where I'm like, these guys are better than us. Whether or not they're bigger than us or whatever, I don't feel. But these guys, I'm like, these guys.
Yeah.
Something special with
Chef's
these guys.
Kiss. But here's the hot take though for me. I enjoy them, other shows too, but especially them so much in the format that I'm accustomed to seeing them on screen, the way they do it, edited however they do it, the personalities. Like, I don't think I would want to see them live. Like, I don't want to know how tall Jay is compared to Rich when they're standing up. You know what I mean? Like, I want it the way I have it now. I don't want that image sullied in any way. You know what I mean? I just like it the way it is besides meeting them, I don't think I would. I don't want to. I don't like. That's one thing. It's like it's too personal. Like I'm kind of content the way it is. I'll tell you who I would like to meet though, if I had to choose 3. And I realized because for me it's a lower tier passion, and that's the Top Gear guys I grew up with. The Top Gear show. They were kind of Top Gear existed before these 3. It existed after these 3, but these 3 in the aughts that I grew up with: Jeremy Clarkson, James May, and Richard Hammond. They were doing podcasting before podcasting. Like they were the absolute perfect representation of individual personalities and like a 3-way chemistry that not only were they knowledgeable and passionate about automobiles, but they were so funny and clever, and there was a genuine love between the 3 of them, but they also busted each other's balls. It was just perfect. You know, it reminded me a little bit of the guys we grew up with admiring, like our dads and uncles and our dad's friends, but also with like an English, very British flavor to it that was a little kind of exotic, but also felt familiar. Those 3 I would like to meet because I feel like it wouldn't hurt because I love them, but I don't love them enough to be heartbroken if it didn't go according to plan. You know what I mean? So those 3 would be the perfect, you know, maybe get a little bit of an interaction. Maybe they zing you with a joke or, you know, sign something for you, and that's enough. I could be in and out. I don't need to spend meaningful time with them. That's too risky. You know, just a little bit of like, I love what you do. You know, I know you hear this hundreds of times a day, but I can only get I love what you do in there and get out. Yeah. So otherwise I'm content. If you mean too much to me, I don't want to meet you. You know, it would just be too like Colin Seinfeld thing. It would just be too heartbroken. I don't want to stop loving that thing.
Right. Like I met 311 several times, including much more intimately than most people would meet them when I was backstage because Ramon's band that he plays with, Bad Rabbits, opened for them. As I've discussed, it was near Dagan's neck of the woods. I was actually staying at his house when I went there, and they were really, really sweet, and I appreciated that because I think I was with the band, but I think they knew that I was like a fan or whatever of theirs, and they we stood right on the side of the stage. I have awesome videos and pictures of that night, but I'll never forget when they were getting on stage, they do their little gathering, you know, and they called us in to their gathering, like, or whatever. And like, we were all there and like, everyone had a good show.
How cool
and
is that?
Stuff. And it was super cool, you know? So like, I was kind of compelled into that because I couldn't say no, but it ended up being okay. So I don't want to test fate again.
Yeah. That's a case of it couldn't have went any better. You lucked out.
Yeah. They played a great set that night too. It was sick. It was awesome.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I was smoking with someone beforehand, and it was like Ramon's friends from New Jersey that came in like to see him and support him or whatever. And they like, a couple of them got so fucked up that they like basically had to go back to the car before the show even started. You know, it was a good show.
I feel like you want a little taste of that too. You got the full dose.
Yeah, it was great. Like, it was cool. I had like the badge, so I like went out into the crowd to like just smoke and hang out with them, and then I just walked backstage before 311 came on. Cool. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, you guys, 2 topics remain, and then there were 2. Now we have no 2 left on the Dogman spinner, but we'll just do 1 and 3 and hope that spinner lands on one of those. All right, Colin is number 1. Brad is number 3. Here we go.
It's me.
Number 3.
Hey.
All right, Brad, take it away when you're ready, my friend.
Yeah, so since we were in New York a few weeks ago, one of the most famous cities in the entire world, well-known place, everyone knows it, movies, TV, books, throughout history, important piece in American history and civilization altogether. I just kind of want to talk about some of the landmarks of New York City, you know, particularly Manhattan, because that's where we were. You know, New York's a big place. Of course, there's like Brooklyn and all that Queens stuff, but we're in Manhattan, so that's where I've been the most also. So I would stick to that place. And I really like New York City, but I would never want to live there when I've been there. You know, it's a little too chaotic for me, I think, but it is a gorgeous city in a lot of ways. Well, I mean, it's grimy in a lot of ways too, like many big cities, but there are some absolutely amazing places in there. Particularly my favorite place in all of New York City is Central Park. I adore Central Park. I love being there. I think it's just the dramatic contrast to the rest of the city. You know, it's like a concrete jungle. You look up, there's buildings everywhere. But I find like some sort of peace in Central Park, even though there is not a lot of peace in Central Park. It's really interesting. It's like being at a carnival almost. Sometimes you go through there and there's some guy juggling or some shit like that. There's like multiple people playing music around that big fountain around there, like all playing different songs, clashing with each other. Vendors everywhere selling you anything like that. It's a really interesting. It's like a swap meet almost at some parts of it. It feels like. But even with all the people there, it's still a really nice place and relax. Like when we were there recently, we went our last day, and I felt very content just sitting there, taking in the nature around that huge place. And I felt very tranquil there. And I was like, I love this place. It feels so nice until, some guy runs by and like honking a horn or something on his bike or yelling, but it's still so great. And, just some of the other parts of New York, obviously Times Square is a fascinating area. It's so well known. It's just like this tidal wave of advertisements at you, screens everywhere, giant M&M store. I forgot that it was there. It's crazy, man. Like Dustin, we went to it briefly when we were there together. We went to that figure store or whatever. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But it's just all these tourist traps, Everyone knows you're getting ripped off when you go there, but you still want to go because it's just Times Square, man. It's a legendary place. You got to go. And I was cracked up at like the bleachers they have up there. People just sit on like these bleachers. I was like, who decided to put bleachers here? Where was MTV there? They used to be there, right? Or are they still?
Yeah, like Total Request Live and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Paramount building, Brad, is on 50th Street, I think. 50th and Broadway, but TRL was further down, like 44th and Broadway, I think, Kyle, right? Like it overlooked like right near the Port Authority bus station.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and just seeing like the Empire State Building from our hotel was really awesome. I love that, legendary building, legendary structure. And the 9/11 memorial, I didn't do it this time, but I've been there before, and it's really, really intense, really powerful kind of moment, and you like look down like that hole in the ground and the water going down through it and everything, all the names on there. It's really a emotional but important thing to see. And even just like small stores, like right before we left for our train, we like went to the Harry Potter store. We didn't even know it was there in New York City. There was one there. It's really cool. It's like multi-level going down through. They had like everything set up like the movies, all the nice books and all the wands set up out of the movies. It was really cool.
Where is that, in Times Square?
No, it was kind of near where we were staying.
Did we walk by it together that one time? I think I saw it.
We might have. I didn't notice it at all though. It was close to our hotel though. But yeah, just kind of New York City. I want to hear like, especially like Dagan and Colin, you guys grew up in Long Island, so you're close to it. Wonder what you guys think of some of the landmarks. What are some of your favorites? And of course, Dustin. Why don't we start with you, Dagan? What are some of your favorite landmarks of New York City?
It's funny, man. I grew up, in the shadow of New York City. I mean, we grew up on Long Island, but New York was the first city I was ever introduced to. We were in the suburbs of that city, and it still strikes me with awe, and it still sort of intimidates me. It's weird. And I worked in New York. I worked in Manhattan for 21 years or something before COVID happened and the commuting stopped. But people always say, like, you're in a big city, not just New York, but you're in any metropolitan city. They say, don't look like a tourist, don't look up. Like, fuck that. Like, I got off the train every day at Penn Station, commuting in from Jersey, and walked up the stairs at 33rd Street and 7th Avenue and looked up, gawking at the Empire State Building looming over me, and just literally to a day told myself, like, dude, how lucky are you? Like, you're in one of the greatest cities. Every day you get to be here, you get to see this place, you get to experience this place. And I always felt that way about New York. I always felt like, I'll talk about this more with Colin's topic later, but I never lived in in Manhattan or any of the boroughs. But I worked in Manhattan for so long but it always filled me with the same awe. Like, I worked down a little lower than I normally did. I almost always worked uptown. like 40th on up, anywhere from 40th to 70th. But there was a brief blip for a couple of years earlier in my career where I worked down in the Flatiron district, like on the other side of Chelsea. And on my walk, not too far, like a stone's throw from the World Trade Center, I would be walking down Park Ave to get to work, and I would look up at the Twin Towers, you know what I mean? And be like, wow, amazing. And that's actually the place I was working when 9/11 happened, although I was in Philly that, I was on my way back. So I wasn't in New York when it happened. But I was always looking up and always appreciating the skyscrapers and the architecture and the Chrysler, how beautiful the Chrysler building is. And even other things like going down the South Street Seaport in Lower Manhattan and looking out at the Statue of Liberty from certain vantage points, or going down to the Brooklyn Bridge and seeing how beautiful those structures are, or just going down to the Bull on Wall Street, and seeing the Bull, or the Museum of Natural History, or the Met, the New York Public Library. Like, there's so much beautiful architecture and a certain flavor to New York. I love all metropolitan cities. I mean, I just love cities. I'm kind of like urban anthropologist when it comes to that. But there's something special about New York, and it always filled me with a sense of wonder, even though I spent so much time there. And I think part of that was never spending days on end there, never really, very rarely even staying overnight, just kind of being in and out, but always kind of was enamored with New York and the scale of it. And, that everything is packed into this, what is it, like 2-mile long stretch, the buildings, the people, the culture, the industry, right? It's like, that's where advertising was born. That's where advertising lives. A lot of the entertainment industry, whatever you're into, whatever you're in, and whatever you're into, whatever you do for a career, whatever whatever you are a hobbyist at, like it's all there. Like, New York has everything. And I love you shouting out Central Park too, because you have this really kind of beautifully kept, largely green area in the middle of this whole thing that seems, when you're in it, you kind of could get the sense that you're not even in a city. You kind of forget momentarily for a little bit that you're in, one of the biggest cities on earth. Central Park is really a really special place. Even Central Park is so big that I never really explored it in any meaningful way. Like, I couldn't tell you how to get from point A to point B in Central Park, even though I spent so many days, so many countless hours eating lunch in that park, being in an office for 8 or 9 years just outside of that park on Central Park West. So, yeah, but New York is kind of the thing I'll say about New York in closing out, is that it will forever be the city I judge all other cities by. You know what I mean? When I go see a new city, when I saw Toronto for the first time, shout out Toronto. Like, you guys have a proper city up there. Shout out Ottawa. I think Toronto's a great place. But when I'm in Toronto or I'm discovering Houston for the first time, first I was in Chicago, the West Coast cities, I'm always the barometer is always New York. Even with Philly's really my heart of hearts when it comes to cities. I really love Philly. I feel comfortable there more so than New York, oddly. But I'm still judging Philly from a New York context. You know what I mean? Like, why can't this be more like New York? Why can't it be on a scale like New York? And again, because our grandpa worked in New York. He owned a hair salon. I think we told you that before, Brad. He was a beautician, owned a salon in New York, in Lower Manhattan. And he was the one who showed me what the city was. I remember driving in from Long Island. You have to come through Queens in order to get, in parts of Brooklyn, in order to get to the borough of Manhattan. And seeing, like, you're in the suburbs where it's just houses and farmland and kind of bucolic and green. And you get less and less of that as you get further west. And then the buildings start to get a little bigger. Now in Queens, you start to see the 15, 20-story high-rise apartments. And then you pass that. Now you get the bigger buildings until you get to Manhattan, where it kind of slowly ramped up to the skyscrapers. And I remember that feeling of excitement of being a little kid, whether I was riding the train or I was just in the car on the Long Island Expressway, like seeing the suburbs turn slowly into that huge city with the super tall buildings. And I think I still have that, again, because I never lived. I only have ever gone there for pleasure or for work, and never really lived in a city like that, except for Philly, which is a lot different than New York. So there's still that I think there's still that wonder with New York. And I wonder, like, even though maybe you live in Manhattan for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, there's something really special about a place that I feel like you can never really discover everything. It's way too big, you know? It's the biggest dungeon in any video game ever. Like, there's no way to possibly ever get through it. And there's not a lot of places like that.
Totally. How far was New York City from you guys? Like, if you drove from where you live in Long Island, how long would it take?
About an hour.
About an hour? Okay.
Hour or so. Yeah, we were an hour east. We were pretty far out on Long Island. It seemed Long Island is really quite long. But we were a little east of the halfway point.
Okay.
So, which was about an hour, give or take, back and forth to Manhattan. Maybe an hour and 10 minutes even to Manhattan.
Yeah, you'd get to Queens and Brooklyn first.
Yeah.
Cool. Dustin, what about you, dude? I know you've been to New York a couple times. Tell me.
Yeah. My first time there was a very interesting and kind of odd experience in that my aunt, her best friend, had a guy she knew got tickets to see Owl City of all bands.
Wow.
And there was extra tickets and my aunt couldn't go. So basically, I was offered to see Owl City for free in New York City, I was taking my girlfriend at the time with me, but I knew no one that was going and it was with trusted people that were like, my aunt was like, yeah, you're going to be fine. But I remember getting, because we drove into New Jersey and then took a train in and then getting out. And you're right, Dagan, that there's something about New York City that you almost compare it to all other cities, and Brad, you mentioned about how it's so ingrained in our TV shows and movies and stuff like that when you're there, particularly the first time, it feels like a crazy dreamlike place where you're in a movie or something. And I remember walking around and thinking, man, I've seen this corner before, but I don't know what movie it was in or this or that. And it's a crazy place, like through and through. It is legitimately feels like a crazy place where there's like all of these giant buildings. There's a guy that looks like he might kill you if you look at him the wrong way. Then there's like there's like the smell of delicious food, and then it smells like piss. So you get like, it's just sensory overload to the max. And that trip too. So I was like 15 or something, and I was being, taken around by people much older than me. And the guy that was there was like, yeah, let's stop and get some food. And I became the Office meme and ate Sbarros in New York City. That's where I was taken.
Oh, no.
That's where I was taken. I was like, well, I guess this is what I'm eating. And, it was fine. But
that was the Penn Station Sbarros too, I bet.
It probably was. Yeah, it was probably around there. So, yeah, as far as like, I mean, you brought up Times Square, and Times Square, I feel like if anyone goes there for the first time, they need like a proper set of warnings. Like, okay, if there's someone dressed up as Spider-Man and if they offer a photo, they want money. They're not offering you a free photo. They're gonna hound you for money if you do that. Also, if a guy is handing out CDs, those are not free either. They'll try to place them in your hand, and then if you walk away, they'll act like you're stealing. Just be aware some of these things when you're around in Times Square. But
shout out Times Square Elmo.
Times Square Elmo, of course.
Yes. Times Square Elmo. That's $20 with a picture with Times Square Elmo.
Yeah. But Brad, you mentioned Central Park too, and there's something so weird about Central Park, just because if you go deep in, it's like, wow, I really feel like I'm in nature here. But then you're actually in this, giant city on the outside. I have to bring up, because I was sharing this in the Discord. There's this YouTuber my mom discovered called Humor Bagel. He primarily puts out like TikToks, but he does YouTube videos where he has this fart squeeze toy thing. And so he just hangs around in Central Park and pranks people by making it sound like he's farting. And there's this one tunnel that I was telling everybody, I'm like, you got to go to the fart tunnel, because when he does the prank in the tunnel, it reverbs. And so there's like this tunnel that I'm like, now that's forever the fart tunnel. And
that's pretty great
in Times Square. So check out Humor Bagel if you are into extremely lowbrow humor like I am.
Mom humor.
Yeah. But this most recent trip, we went to, and I don't, is a store considered part of this? Because like,
Sure.
I feel like the Nintendo store, like that's an iconic place now in New York.
Yeah,
Like it's like, like the Macy's there, man. It's crazy.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest situations. There was nothing actually funny that happened, but Holly was looking for, she wanted different leggings because the ones she wore previously that day had gotten wet because it was so rainy. So we decided to go to this Macy's. So it's me, Chris, Brad, Brandon, Kristen, and Holly. So it's like an LSM crew rolling up in this giant Macy's and trying to find the maternity section. So I just, there's just like all of us were rolling. I'm like, man, if anyone saw us and like knew us and just like, hey, those are the guys from Last Stand hanging out in the maternity section of the giant Macy's in New York City.
Doing Trump impressions the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Is that the one with
Chris
the
was
wooden...
just going off with those Trump impressions in there.
Oh,
too.
left and right. You couldn't stop him.
He was killing it.
Yeah.
Killing it with that. That Macy's has the wooden escalator, right? Still?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
That kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, it's very sketchy looking.
Yeah.
It's old.
Yeah.
Dude, that's like 100 years old. Maybe older?
I don't know if I want to ride that. I feel like, everyone talks about getting sucked into an escalator. I'm like, no, you're fine. That one?
Yeah, that one actually scary.
It could happen.
Watch your feet.
It could happen. We did go to one place this time that I'd never been before, and that is the Cathedral, St. Patrick's.
Right? Yeah, that was crazy.
Beautiful building.
And we got in there, and we had kind of dispersed a little bit, but I texted Brad. I'm like, yo, major Bloodborne vibes in this place.
Absolutely.
Like, this is the central cathedral in Yarnum right now. But it was cool. Very beautiful place. I was talking to Holly about it today, actually, because my biggest comparison was when I went to Notre Dame in 2002. And it's weird because they're very similar in size and they're big cathedrals, Catholic cathedrals, of course. But the St. Patrick's Cathedral felt very sterile in comparison. It's like very bright on the inside.
I've never been inside.
It's like a church tourist destination in a way. It feels kind of strange inside, but we had a fun time walking around and checking out that. But yeah, there's still many things I haven't done in New York City. Like I haven't gone to the Statue of Liberty. I went and saw it the first time I went. So I was in Battery Park. And the only thing I remember about that was a big dude that had a snake around his neck, just hanging out in the park. And I was like, okay, so this is, I guess this is New York City, just hanging out Battery Park, giant snake around your neck. The last thing I'll say, our hotel had this big lookout that Brad mentioned where you could easily, on one side, you could see the Empire State Building. And then you look down the other way and you can see the One World Trade Center. And I couldn't help but think, like, I was up there with Holly the one morning. I'm like, man, I can't even imagine what it was like when 9/11 happened in this city. Like, imagine we were standing right here where we were. And I think that that's a thing now for tourists. I mean, probably all tourists, but particularly American tourists that were alive during that day that go visit. Just it brings a new level, an eye-opening moment of like how horrifying it would be. Because if you're in Manhattan and let's say it happens and you're out of the danger zone of that area, but you're still like, well, what's next? Do I try to find some place to go underground? There's no fucking way I'm getting out of the city right now in this chaos. So I'm kind of just stuck here. So I really would like to go to the 9/11 memorial at some point because it sounds really, really interesting. But yeah, that it's definitely, anytime I've been to New York City, I can't help but think about that when I'm there. Is like, man, that brings new context. And it's so weird now just because, I don't know, not to get overly serious, but it's been a lot of odd 9/11 related like memes and jokes that I'm seeing pop up with a younger generation that didn't live it. And it's one of those things where I do believe there is a tasteful 9/11 joke, if that makes sense. Like, there are ways to joke about horrific things that happen that I think are respectful, but it's odd now just because some of that, I don't know if it's just time it's lost, like I said, a younger generation that doesn't care. But anytime I'm there, I get like this, I don't know, this level of respect and feeling of like, man, this is where it happened. And
yeah, It's hard not to think about it when you're down, and you see the Freedom Tower, you see the building where the other buildings once stood, or in that same area. You know what I mean? Like it's a reminder. That day was interesting too, right? Like again, I was in the Philly burbs on my way back, but didn't they evacuated like the Empire State Building? I think they evacuated the Sears Tower. What's the big tower in San Francisco? The Bank of America building?
Transamerica building.
Transamerica, Bank of America in LA, like. They just, it was like a thing of like, what's next? So it's interesting that you say that, Dust, because I think that was the sentiment. And then it was like people didn't, consummate New Yorkers were like, they're not going to hit here. Like, can we just stay in our build? That type of thing. Like even in the moment we're like, it's fine, type of thing. But it's hard. It's impossible. Like every time I'm riding the train and I see the New York skyline come into view on the horizon, I think I always think of that. It's like it's like one for one now. Like you just think of that in association with New York, which is sad.
We did see one other very low key place for the first time when we were driving in. Of course, I mentioned going to the One Piece store in New Jersey. That's not the one I'm talking about, though.
Oh, that was in Jersey?
Yeah, it's in like a Japanese market. It's like a pop-up store within it. No cards there, by the way. I told everyone else this, but they had nothing, no stock. But a few miles down the road, you can see there's a small statue and a little thing where the Hamilton duel was. So it's just like it's in this residential area. There's like a house across the street. So we just went and parked and checked out this spot. It's all landscape different now. It's basically on the side of like a small cliff. So it's not exactly where they dueled, but kind of cool to go see that where they would go get shit done in Jersey.
Damn.
Where men would deal with things.
They went to New Jersey because it was illegal to duel in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah. Got to go across the river, fuck some people up, regret
it's
it for the rest of your life.
It's still legal to duel in Newark, I think.
In Newark,
Just Newark.
Whether you want to
Newark.
or not, they're going to be coming for you. They're going to be gunning for you in Newark.
Yeah.
Nice. Colin, let's hear from you to round this conversation out.
I'm a pretty staunch Long Islander. And what I mean by that is when I went to college in Boston, people would always ask me like, oh, where are you from? And I'd be like, oh, I'm from New York. And then eventually you'd stop saying that because you'd have to answer 17 more questions about where you're from in New York. Oh, I was just there.
Yeah.
Oh, where were you? Oh, I was in, Chelsea. It's like, I'm not from New York City. I'm from, there's a lot of other parts of New York. So you have to be like much more specific. And so my whole joke is when someone asks where I'm from, I often say, and if I'm in the tri-state especially, I'm like, oh, I'm from the South Shore of Long Island out in Suffolk County. Because that answers most people's questions. Because if I'm from Long Island, oh, where? Suffolk County. Oh, what part? Oh, the South Shore. Right. Oh, yeah, where is that? Bellport. Oh, okay. Is that near Sayville or? It's like, yeah, like you can just answer most of these questions. So I was never really, like Dagan said, like we would go into New York City pretty often. Our dad worked there and was a New York City firefighter, which our audience knows. And we would go to his firehouse, or we would go to, like, I remember going to Canal Street to go get pants. Like we would do like random things. And Canal Street Jeans was like an iconic location. I don't know if it's still there now. And like we would go buy like underwear and socks from the Hasidic Jews. You remember all doing all that kind of stuff, Dave? Like,
hell yeah,
Dad like knew where like you get the best value, all these random things, Chinatown, wherever the fuck we were. And so I remember going to the Statue of Liberty, which I've only been to once, and I was in middle school, and I was like, yeah, I've never been anywhere notable in New York City. Like we're always in these random places, like towny places, I guess that our dad would know. And so going to the Statue of Liberty was kind of cool. I remember that. I have very specific memories of being a kid and doing the look up to the building, like underneath it with the Twin Towers, where the buildings look like they're going over you, like way over you, which is really cool. I have a very vivid memory of doing that. And of course, all the iconic buildings, the Empire State Building and Chrysler Building and all of the rest. The skyline has changed quite a bit. I've noticed. I even noticed. Micah doesn't give a shit about half the things I say. I don't blame her because it's like I'm always going on and on about random things. But one of the things I was like, oh my god, they renamed the Triborough Bridge or whatever. I was like, well, when did that happen? Kind of situation. Up. So things like I hadn't been in the city. We went just obviously for the live show, but I hadn't been since 2017. And I was there with Dagan and my dad. We went to dinner, and we were there just for a brief time. So I'm not really like. a New York City person, and I have no interest in really seeing very much more of it. I mean, I've seen a lot of it just over time, just through attrition of being around. But the one place that I used to go when I was younger in high school specifically was Washington Square Park. Me and my friend Dave used to cut school sometimes, and sometimes go on weekends, but often cut class and go in and play chess there. And the reason we didn't want to do it on weekends is because it became so crowded on weekends. We liked playing like during the day. So, and I would go into the city sometimes to do like gigs for IGN. I remember going to see Carson Daly's late night show so I could interview Breaking Benjamin or whatever, because they were playing that night, but then they couldn't even do the interview. But if you go and look at the footage of the show, you'll see me in the crowd, which is pretty funny.
That is funny.
So like little things like that. But yeah, I'm not much of a New York City person. And so, and this will lead into my topic in a little while, but I was saying to Micah when she's never been or hasn't been since she was a kid. And I was like, there is something about being in the center of the world. I mean, like Manhattan is the center of the Western world, whether or not you want to admit that or accept that or not. Doesn't mean it has the most people or anything like that. It just means that this is like the intersection of like all Western culture.
Yep.
Is in that city, and being there is somehow profound and meaningful. But at the same time, you've been hearing a lot about cities in decay. San Francisco, you hear the most about. I've heard San Francisco is like unrecognizable in a lot of ways now. It's lost so much of its tax base, and the way we work now has changed everything. Where New York City is noticeably decaying. Like it's not in good shape at all. Like I'm not trying to be, it is anecdotal because you see what you see, but I was just paying attention when I was on the FDR, when I was looking around. It's like everything is fucked. Like everything is either there's like some new construction, some things being fixed, but like there's just so much decay, and it makes you wonder why people even want to live in a place like this. And it used to be my dream to live in New York City, not necessarily in Manhattan, but more like in Brooklyn. Like one of my dreams, like I'd like to end up there one day and at least try it for a little while. And living in Boston for 5 years and San Francisco for 10 years and LA for 3 years, I've had enough. And New York is a better place than all three of those places, frankly. Maybe San Francisco's got a little something on New York. LA definitely doesn't. Boston.
Right.
LA has no, like LA is.
I don't really like LA.
I don't. That's like a whole different topic.
I would never want to live there. No offense, everyone, but no.
I never wanted to live there. I was compelled to live there by my ex, which I'm fine with. I said yes. But it reaffirmed everything I didn't like about it. I knew I wasn't going to like it. I just knew it from afar because I used to go there all the time for a day trip or 2 days or 3 days at a time for work. I was always in LA. And I'm like, there's just something about this place there's a lot of things about it that I don't much care for, like the fucking ridiculous heat, which you experience where you are too. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not much of a touristy guy. Even when I've traveled, I'm probably one of the people that has been to the most places that has seen the fewest things in those places. Like, it's like, oh, you go all the way to Europe several times and just work, or Japan a couple times and just work. That was just kind of what I did. So when people like, when we would go to Tokyo, and I would do some things, like I would spend a day in Akihabara and do like some Colin things, but generally speaking, I was there to work and study, like, and you know, like what people are telling me and try to figure out what things I'm going to write and say. And others, no disrespect, I don't blame them, but, you know, go to like Tokyo Disney or like go, you know, fucking Mount Fuji or some shit. You know, it's like, I'm just kind of like, so I'd be at the top of the hotel bar and like look out and be like, there's Mount Fuji. That's pretty cool. You know, I don't need to see it any closer than that. So yeah, I'm not much of a touristy person, really. And it's not any, like, even in San Francisco, Fisherman's Wharf is like the very touristy part of San Francisco, and that's in the northeast corner and kind of the eastern side of the city. And I never went over there, ever. Like, I would never go over that side of the city because you're just getting too close to
too many people, too many tourists.
It's people, and it's just like things that are there to, like, tourist traps. Like, it's like I live here. I'm not trying to be a dickhead. It's just like, this isn't, and people will be like, man, that's quintessential San Francisco, huh? And I'd be like, no, really isn't. You know, you should have like went to some other parts of the city, because it's really actually not like that at all. Like, it's got like this real like nautical vibe and theme, and I'm like, San Francisco's really, I know it's like a seaside city, but it's like, it's not really like that. It's not like Cape Cod or something like that. I don't know what the hell is going on at Fisherman's Wharf, but so I've always kind of tried to stay away from that, and I lived on the other side of the city, so it wasn't that hard for me.
Question then, Colin.
Yeah.
Someone puts a gun to your head, said you're gonna die if you don't pick a tourist spot to go to in New York City? Where are you going? You got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I thought the option would be to just die. I mean,
he could just die if he wants.
No, I don't want you to die.
Out.
I mean, don't die for no reason, like we don't want you to flippantly just expel yourself from life.
Kyle, let me know if you need to call a friend.
Well, this is the gun to your head, Colin.
Oh, go ahead, Dig. I have a few things in my head, but I don't think
I just know how much you love museums, so I would say the Met or MoMA for you.
Yeah, sure. That's a great choice. New York City has wonderful museums. The problem is that this is the shitty thing about some of our cities in the United States. Is Washington D.C. has by far the best museums in some of the best museums in the world. You could spend 3 weeks there and not see all the museums in Washington D.C., but you have to be in Washington, D.C.
That's the downside.
So if you wanted to see the better balance is to go to New York City, a much better place with museums that are high caliber. They just don't have the volume of the Smithsonian's where there's 17 of them or whatever,
Yeah. And they're spaced out in New York too.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So there's the Natural History Museum. Bronx Zoo is I'm kind of on the brink about where I feel about zoos in the modern era, where I'm I feel like zoos, I don't mind zoos existing. Generally, it's oh, look at this exotic animal. But now we can just see any of them and probably just dispatch experts to go and get the most beautiful 4K footage of them. And so it's why don't we just kind of let the animals go back into the wild? We don't need to collect them anymore.
Let me ask you this question about zoos. I never thought about this before. But does it have some sort of odd roller coaster dynamic to it where something might go wrong? The polar bear it's probably not going to happen. But the polar bear could get out. The gorilla, the lion.
Dude, Harambe. Might have a Harambe situation.
That person went in, though.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just saying.
That's wild
can happen.
Or you could find the animal really depressed for some reason, or the thing is that, and I don't know if you remember this, Dig. Dad used to bring us to the Bronx Zoo every year for Earth Day. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do remember.
Because
we cleaned it up.
Right, because you could go for free if you cleaned.
Oh.
Picked up garbage and stuff like that. And so we would do that, and I think that's cool. But my experience at that zoo is also through that lens, typically, where it's oh, everyone in the tri-state area is here today. This isn't a normal day at the Bronx Zoo. There's literally 100,000 people here, so on Earth Day, and I'm not really going to be able to enjoy it. So, but I just, generally speaking, zoos, it's again, I'm not I think animals have rights, and I think we should respect them. But I'm not one of these crazy people that's no zoos. I just think there's no reason for them anymore, because it's how exotic is anything anymore? Just go look it up on the internet. What are you, crazy?
I think that there's a difference between real life and footage of it. Obviously,
but it's not a net neutral because we have to remove them from their habitat.
Exactly. I know that.
Yeah. So to me, it's just not worth it. Yeah.
Some of these animals are, I'm not saying SeaWorld shit, but some of these animals, they're going to get eaten in a second out in the wild, potentially. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
They're kind of living the high life in a zoo where they're fed, they can hang out, they can fuck, whatever they want to do, shit wherever they want. But again, I wouldn't say that's all the cases, because I've seen lions in a zoo and I'm I kind of feel bad for you here, man. But again, they're maybe just chilling out and man, I don't have to hunt. I can hang out, so
they get hand fed.
I wonder how much we feel like they should feel bad. So we're projecting our emotions,
right?
When really they're we're good.
You're probably right, but I think that the best thing would be to you don't have to let them loose, but just don't replace them. To be these are the last animals in captivity. And if you want to go see, a bird or something, go watch a fucking David Attenborough, one of these 7 million documentaries that you can watch and actually see it and learn about it and all that. I think that that's more valuable than even just being I saw it with my own 2 eyes. It's that's cool, but there is something about context and all that. But I'm not much of an animal rights person. I just think that I'm not crazy about it. I just think that we should be better about those things. That seems to be obvious. People talk about factory farming and stuff, and I think that that's true too. But this seems so obvious. And SeaWorld and all that, is a huge, like you said, a huge controversy.
I understand what you're saying, Kyle. I mean, why don't we just settle it this way? Take the animal bad actors, the animal equivalent of, cons, right? Convicts, criminals, and put them in the zoos.
Right.
This way, they're in captivity. We could enjoy them. We don't know the difference between
Actual
a lion
jail
and
for them. Yeah, animal jail.
a good citizen and a criminal.
That's
right?
good. That's like the
true.
Black Mirror episode where they torture like criminals by making them relive these horrible situations over and over again that people watch as like as like spectators because that's their punishment or whatever. But they don't know because their mind's washed.
Yeah, it's a similar thing.
White Bear is the episode I'm talking about. If people want to
White Bear.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Colin,
you've talked about that one.
You're
before.
not going to the San Diego Zoo then?
Oh yeah, I've never been.
Oh no, I've never been to the San Diego Zoo either. Actually, which I think was other than
It's cool.
is the
Still the
Bronx Zoo
biggest
more
in the
famous
country.
than the San Diego Zoo? I don't know, but those
That's
are
a
the
good question.
those are the two I would say.
Those are the two, but I think San Diego's bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, San Diego was big it's been a long time since I've been, but it was big.
Yeah, and it's
And you
not
know
in the
what?
Bronx,
They have
so
a
there's
little
that.
better in San
Yeah,
Diego.
that's true. It's like the Bronx.
Weather-wise, right? Unless you're a polar bear and you really like the snow and the frigid weather.
Yeah.
Like that, you would think they have a little bit of a better life in San Diego rather than the Bronx, where you get the 4 seasons and it gets a little cold.
Where they have to invite people to your place of dwelling to pick up garbage every year.
Yeah.
Leave it to us, right? We got a free trip to the zoo, but we had to pick up garbage with the stick with the nail in the bottom for hours.
Oh,
I don't
man,
even
that's
remember.
funny.
Did we go to this? Did you get like free passes to the zoo?
I think it
when
was
you
like
did
that. I thought it was like you did it in the morning and then you went in the afternoon to the zoo, or you went to
I
the
don't
zoo in the
know.
morning and then picked up in
I
the
don't
afternoon,
remember.
like some swap kind of thing. I think.
I don't. You could be right. I don't remember, but yeah, I do remember doing that. That's all. Yeah, I like you shouting out the zoo. Also, getting to the zoo. That's the Major Dagan Expressway, dude. That road. I'm a pretty good driver. Like it takes a lot to shake me, but the that route to the Bronx Zoo, like crossing over the George Washington Bridge to the Cross Bronx Expressway to the Major Dagan to get to the Bronx Zoo, is treacherous. That is one of the most perilous drives you could do. Usually you have kids, so that's not great. It's awful to look at, but also just dangerous traffic wise. That's another thing about New York. Like driving in Manhattan doesn't scare me. It's getting all the boroughs around Manhattan and getting in and out when you're in and out of the city. Manhattan driving doesn't bother me at all. I feel like it's almost like being in Manhattan. Like Dustin was saying, it feels like this isn't real. It's sensory overload. At the same time, it feels completely like fantasy. I feel like that's driving Manhattan. You just kind of snap into that mode. Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you guys? Did anybody take a subway ride?
Yeah.
During your time?
Yeah.
Oh, you
I
got
didn't,
on.
no.
Okay.
Yeah. We took the subway a lot.
I cherish my
Oh,
life
nice.
too much
Okay, good.
to.
I was hoping you saved yourself some money by getting on the subway. Because, I think it was right before the show when the guy got shot on the subway, right? Was it that weekend?
I don't know, man. There's.
He took out a gun, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong.
He got
the
stabbed
guy
or something,
took it away
right?
from him and shot him.
Yeah.
With his own gun.
Yeah, that was what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. Right.
Right. I think it was the day or days before the show, I thought.
No, I'm good.
So
it
everybody
seemed
was
a
like-
little before it. Yeah. Because I remember thinking about that when I was there. I was like, I hope I don't get fucking shot.
Yeah.
Thankfully, no.
I'm glad you took the subways, though. That is still the cheapest and quickest way to get around. Seriously, I know people are going to get mad at me for saying this, and maybe it was just that I was usually on the 2 or 3 or the 1 or the 9 train, just going up and downtown, maybe 30 blocks. And sometimes I hop on the D train to get to Yankee Stadium. So I was never going cross town and things like that, but I always found the subway very reliable. Like it never really threw me. I was never really late because of the subway. I was often late because of regional rail, like Jersey Transit or Long Island Railroad. But I was never late because of the subway. I had very few, experiences with it breaking down or being delayed more than a minute or two. And it's still, I remember when it was very cheap, but still relatively inexpensive way to shoot around the city compared to the cabs and the Ubers. What was the frequency of you guys to yellow cab to Uber or Lyft or any of the other ones in New York?
Like what we used?
Yeah, to get around.
We didn't use any.
Oh, you just walked or subway?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. All right, that's good. Except to get to and from the airports, I guess.
Yeah, we had to take the train and all that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, no Uber or anything. Because I was like, well, if you take like an Uber in Manhattan, it feels like it's going to take forever anyways. And it's going to be way more expensive.
It can.
Yeah.
For sure.
I took a cab to and from. I took cabs to and from.
Yellow cab.
Yeah, because I was like, I'm not crazy about cab companies. I think that it's cool that their monopoly has been broken, but New York is still the one place where I think cabs are in the United States where I think they're really still vibrant and viable to even just hail one, because cabs just don't even exist in most cities anymore. Like watching San Francisco cabs just disappear off the face of the planet over the years I was there was really interesting as Uber took over. But we ordered an Uber and it was not moving. Like it was just like staying still. And I think drivers do that to force you to cancel because they don't want to cancel for some reason, you know?
Oh.
And so I think they just sit there. And so I was like, I canceled it. And then the cab stand was right there. I was like, fuck it, let's just go get a cab. And then on the way back, I thought it'd be funny. Mikey didn't want to do it, but I'm like, do you want to like hail a cab? You know, like,
yeah.
Oh, she talked about this.
Yeah. And I was like, she's like, no, I don't want to do it. So I just did it. I was just like, okay. And then I just like held my hand out, and in 2 seconds we were in a cab. And it's just easier that way. But it's not like that in most cities anymore. The problem in San Francisco was the cab drivers didn't want to take credit cards and they didn't want to drive you to half the city. So we were thrilled to see them go out of business. It was like, fuck you. You used to have to lie to them basically to get them to like bring you places by like repositioning it in their minds. Like I used to say I would want to go to Mission and Geneva, which is a street intersection in San Francisco, and then once they would get there, I'd be like, oh yeah, just keep going that way now. You know, like trying to get as close as where I needed to be, because like they were basically bringing me towards like the border of Daly City.
You had to game them.
Right. But so like there's no problems with that because there was even an Uber competitor called Sidecar for a while, and their whole thing was that the drivers knew and could accept where they wanted to go based on the ride. And what Sidecar realized was like that means no one wants to go anywhere and do anything. So Uber hid that, and still I think hides that from there, like until you accept the ride where they're going to be going, and that's to like even the playing field. And cabs were just too smug with their monopoly, and so we were amped up when they went in San Francisco when they were out of business. Like fuck you guys, fuck you. You know, how many times would be like, this is as far as I'm going, or we're not going to the Sunset, or whatever, we're not going to the airport, or we're not doing this. It's like I had too many of those experiences. That doesn't happen in New York though. Yeah. No,
you won't see that happen in New York too frequently. Sidecar, not digging the name of that. So they're making in the name, they're saying they're like they're not as high as a contender. It's like we're not Uber, we're not Lyft, we're Sidecar.
Right.
We're third, you know, type of thing. Can I just say, Kyle, hailing a cab? Not surprised Micah didn't want to do it because she's a little on the shy side.
No, she is. And yeah, she didn't really know what to do. And I'm like, dude, it's so no one knows what to do until they just do it. You see other people do it and then you do it and then it works.
But nothing worse. The only other thing I could think of that's worse than, or maybe equivalent to hailing a cab and they're just ignoring you, is trying to get a drink at a bar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's like, why am I an illusion? Like, what is happening?
The thing about the bar is that I don't want my drink any sooner or later than where I belong in the line that's lined up at the bar in some way. Like I need good bartenders. Eric will tell you this. Like good bartenders know like the order that people came up. You know,
even though it's not a proper line.
Right. Exactly. But like making people jockey and like trying to find the person that's like leaving and getting in there and leaning in and doing all that kind of stuff. Like anything to get a drink. I hate that shit. I hate it too. That's why
if
I just like
was a
sitting at tables.
bartender, I would send that person to the back in my mind. Like if I was a bartender and noticed somebody trying to, you know, get in front of other people by being that squeaky wheel, I would send him to the back of the line. Right. So he would be number 5. Now he's number 10. You know, but I don't feel like a lot of people have that. Yeah. You know, that's a rare gift, I feel like.
Well, boys, I'm satisfied.
You're satisfied, my friend. Yes. You know what, Brad? I want to say something on behalf. I know you're a little bit. You're not in LA proper. You're in Orange County.
Yeah.
Right. But I will say something on behalf of LA. I think LA is a little bit of an anomaly in terms of being an American city because downtown LA is not what you think of when you think of LA. You have downtown LA. Downtown LA, oddly, is like Wilmington, Delaware. It's like not residential at all. Mm-hmm. It's just a place of commerce. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is very strange for an East Coast city. And that's why I think go to Wilmington, Delaware on a weekend. It's like a fucking ghost town. You know what I mean? It's scary. So I will say, and I was really hard on LA when I was younger because I lived there and I just wanted to be back in New York and I was so miserable. And I know LA is in a bad, in worse shape than it's ever been right now. But I do think it's slightly unfairly maligned because it's different than any other city, American city. It's just not.
It's just really spread out.
It's spread out,
and therefore more annoying to get anywhere. And it has horrific traffic. The public transportation is nowhere near the level of any other city. It's so bad, dude. Like you have to have a car there.
Yeah,
and everything takes forever. Like you're going 45 minutes an hour to get from one part of LA to the other. Could be longer depending on the hour.
Yeah, it could be
it's just
a coin flip. Really bad. You know.
Yeah, it's just a fucking coin flip. You have no idea.
Yeah.
That is really rough. But Brad, let me ask you this: like people in Anaheim, people in Orange County and Huntington Beach and all of that, are a lot of those people beholden on the city for work? Like, do they commute into LA to go to work?
Some do. Yeah, there's a lot around here though. Like, there's a lot in Orange County, a lot of businesses, a lot of big things. It's a lot of big game companies down here too. Specifically where I'm at in Irvine, there's like a ton.
Oh, I didn't know you were in Irvine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Bandai Namco's right here. Sega Atlas.
Oh, that's cool.
Blizzard's right here. Ready at Dawn. So many. Obsidian. They're all like right here.
Oh,
For video games, there's a ton. But yeah. And Irvine has like a ton of businesses. Like the Talkable HQ is like right over here and all that stuff. So we have a lot. But I knew some
my
kids.
Friend Liv Moss.
Yeah. I knew some kids, maybe like one or two whose parents commuted to LA.
Okay.
But everyone else, no. They didn't have to.
Yeah, so it's not like being.
It's not like for you guys where you're like, commuting to the city every day or something like that.
Yeah, everybody goes to Philly, New York, or Boston.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like that.
Area. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, which is interesting too, because you think that would make the traffic worse, but because they're not doing that, you know what I mean? Like it's not, and it could. I know there's a lot of people in the LA area do commute downtown, not just the Irvine area, but yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious about. I'm really curious about that, but I like the way this topic plays into our last topic, Kyle's topic. Kyle, I'm going to spin this for you. And maybe if it doesn't land on one,
end it early.
Yeah,
we can end it early. I have them on the launch. That's fine.
You just don't go.
Yeah.
You want to know something funny? Guys, I'll tell you a little bit of my craziness. I just got a job and I have an interview at 6:00 with another job. Whoa. This is an animator's OCD because I feel like in the back.
Because you don't want to be in the office.
I need a backup plan.
Yeah. I mean,
You don't want to work in an office. Just be honest.
Could be an office thing. Yeah. This job may or may not be on the West Coast. So I couldn't possibly commute to Seattle.
Right.
It's not Nintendo.
Damn.
Bungie.
Kyle, you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. One.
Hey. It was meant to be. Yeah, I'll go quick because it kind of folds into what I was saying a little bit about my time in New York City and just my thoughts on cities is, man, there is so much crossfire between people that live in cities and people that live in suburbia about like what's better, your memes or whatever, and your memes of like skylines and memes of McMansions and whatever. You have to be coping so hard to think that living in a shoebox in a city like New York is preferable to living in the suburbs. And I was one of those people for a long time that was like, man, I love city life and I love living in my little shoebox and I pay a fucking arm and a leg for it and it's dope. And I get to take the train to work and I got all access to all these things. And it's not to say that cities are bad. They're not. I just think that in some ways they feel antiquated. It's like, I feel like we're going to be entering this moment of urban abandonment. Ultimately, the United States has an enormous amount of space. First of all, in my area, and I live in the suburbs, like more towards the rural part in some ways, like, you know, kind of, we live like very suburban on one end of us and like kind of very rural behind us in our area. And there's building shit everywhere. Like people are just moving here. I don't know why, but people are just moving here. And it's very attractive to just have space and make the I guess the mathematical concession that I'm going to live in a house or live in the suburbs. I guess you can live in an apartment or whatever in the suburbs. I've done that as well. And there's going to be these deficits to doing it, but there are all these upsides to it too. And having lived in the city and been so insular for so long and like really living an urban life from when I was 17, when I went to college, to when I left LA, when I was 35, I guess, something like that, is there was just like, I couldn't believe that I would want this life in the suburbs. And now like, I never, ever want to leave it. And just wanted to note that I think city living is vastly overrated. And the thing about city living, that I've been saying something recently that I've been hearing on some of the podcasts that I listen to about like financial podcasts where they're like, they use the term, it's expensive to be poor. And the shitty reality of city living is that you're paying an arm and a leg to live somewhere without having any equity in it. And many people are stuck in that situation because of work or whatever, and they don't have the amount of money to put down for a down payment for a house. And so they're stuck in this catch-22, not of their own choosing. And it's kind of shitty. And it's a great example of it's expensive to be poor, because the people that, and I'm not saying rich people, obviously rich people live in cities too, but most cities are just covered with small rundown apartments that people live in, and they pay like, dude, I lived in a nice apartment in Santa Monica. My apartment was almost $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
You know? And my apartment in San Francisco was $2,800 or something like that. And we were squatting on it, basically. That's why the price was so low, because I had lived there for years. And my mortgage is like a fraction of that. And I own it. But I had this advantage of having some money and being able to put the down payment down that allowed me to extract myself from that. It's just so shitty that people become wage slaves, basically, and cannot get the step ahead to get equity in their place so that they can extract themselves from these, what seem to me, pretty decaying urban environments where you're paying so much for so little. And I guess that's what I'd never thought that when I was in the moment. And I only thought that when I had the true contrast, because even when I grew up in the suburbs, it's different when you're a kid. You don't really have like the observational, like you're not looking at like grocery prices and gas and distance to work and all that. You're kind of just there based on your parents' choices and all that. You have no agency over anything. But so I wanted the exact opposite when I left, and that was city living, which I never wanted to leave Boston. Even during breaks and stuff, like there were some Christmases where I didn't even go home because I was like, I don't want to leave. Like, I love being here. I have everything, access to it, but it's just these recent trips to Boston and New York have reminded me, like, wow, American cities are not doing great. And a lot of the problems that they experience like wouldn't be unheard of in my town. And not just from like city crime and all that kind of stuff, which is bad, but I'm just like tent cities and people being crazy and intersection takeovers and all the random shit that cities, like, I don't know. It's just so strange to me. So I just want to shout out suburban living because I think it gets a lot of shit and I understand why, but I would love for more people to be able to extract themselves out of urban environments to get the hype of the suburban life, where if only it were more fair, you would realize that you would pay less than your current rent for something you would own. You would have more space and preferably a yard and all those kinds of things. And the trade-offs would be like, maybe you have to have a car or a way to get around and some tolerance for not having like epic convenience, you know? So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Shout out to the suburbs.
It's interesting, Kyle. I mean, there was a time where you were getting miserable out west in LA specifically, and you were already playing with the idea of moving back. And there was probably a year or so worth of time where I thought for sure you would end up in Brooklyn. Like, I don't, I figured sometimes I thought Long Island and stuff like that, but then I thought, you know what, you and I may have even discussed that at a certain point. Like, that would be kind of like the best of both worlds, close to everybody, still on your own, close to the city, but not in Manhattan, that sort of thing. And it makes sense where you ended up because, I mean, for so many reasons, it just feels like a natural fit, especially because almost the whole family's down there. But yeah, there was a time where I remember, toying with the idea of like, all right, where are you, talking about with you or just guessing, where is he going to end up? But you have a love for the suburbs, It's just such a peaceful footing in the suburbs.
Yeah, it's peaceful and it's tranquil and it's friendly and it's just, I don't know. Like, I have no aversion to it. When I see these things, people, I saw a tweet going around recently where it was like a picture of like, the same old kind of houses in the suburbs. And they're like, this is much more oppressive than a New York City skyline or whatever. And I'm like, no, it isn't. Like, It really, truly isn't. I promise you, I've had both of those experiences, and you are wrong. It's not to say that there aren't preferential things. Like, I loved being in San Francisco and being able to go anywhere and do anything and whatever. I love that. It's super cool, but is it worth it? Especially when I'm 39. It was fun when I was 24. So I also think that like things just change, and I couldn't believe. Yeah, I thought about New York City, and I almost bought Dad's house on Long Island. And when he was selling his old house, and it just wasn't lining up. I really should have, because it's worth a fucking fortune now. But regardless, yeah, I'm very happy being here. I think Mike is happy here too. And we talk about it sometimes. Like, I have this little bit of desire to get further south and further inland, like to frankly deeper, redder states where I feel like I will have seriously, like where I think like it'll be more.
I know the inland thing doesn't compute with me.
It's just like more palatable way of life for me, whether it's like smaller government, lower taxes, whatever. But I can deal with a purple state like Virginia. Virginia is really like the most liberal part of the South. So I think it's a decent mixture of things. But even here, it seems very family oriented. It's very refreshing. And the interesting thing that I often reflect about in my own neighborhood is how diverse it is. It's probably the most diverse place I've really ever lived. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in a Chinese neighborhood. We lived in a white neighborhood, obviously, on Long Island. Here, like, my neighbors are Black, like Islam, like Muslim or Arab, whatever, Asian guy across the street, gay couple down the street, like all sorts of, I'm like, it's pretty interesting. Like it's kind of a good confluence of things, a very modern suburban situation. So I don't know. I just wanted to give my tip of my cap to the suburbs. I think they're unfairly maligned, and I think it's a lot of cope, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like, you're talking about like owning your house. It's like where I live, it's fucking insanely expensive to live.
Yeah.
But like, I do envy like being able to just own your house, pay your mortgage. And it's like city living is cool, but I think like you're saying, it's more like when you're younger, you'll probably get more out of it. But as you get older, you just kind of get sick of all that shit. Like I would be so mad, dude, if I had loud neighbors or something. If I lived in this city, it's just like, well, you're fucked. There's not much you can do. But at least in your house, you can know it's much more quiet, and I feel like you can do a lot more without being bothered. Something about owning that plot of land, like that little yard.
I think about that all the time. Like my yard's not very big at all. It's like a quarter of an acre, maybe, or something like that.
But it's yours.
But yeah, it's mine. I often think about that. Like, if you zoom out of the planet and look at all the land everywhere, it's like this little thing, I actually own it.
Yeah.
And
your little chunk.
So, and like my dream is to get to like, I'm going to do it, I think, at the end of the year, is to get like, because I've just been saving money and trying to dump it into the house to like just pay it off. And it's my dream to just have no more, like literally no living expenses, because I have the solar panels for electricity, no mortgage, hopefully by the end of the year. And then it will just be like the internet, food, like just incidentals. And it's like, dude, if things went down, I can go work at fucking Publix and survive here.
That's true. That's true.
Like, it just makes, that's how I deal with, people often ask, like, how do you deal with your stress and anxiety? That's how. Is like just constantly making it so, like, foolproofing my life as much as possible.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Kyle, I'll just go next, because I have to say, I have this real best of both worlds mentality. Like, I really do love being in the city. I love cities. But it's really how my life played out, I realized, and it wasn't even intentional. That's the interesting thing. Just worked for me, which was almost always working in a city, in a big city, mostly New York, and living in the suburbs. So I was able to go in and enjoy the benefits of being in the city, if you like that sort of thing, like the skyscrapers, the sights and sounds, the excitement, the good food at your fingertips, the culture. But I could duck out. I didn't have to be berated by the noise and the traffic and, walking into people all the time, the overcrowdedness of it. So I could enjoy being in the city and then come home to a pretty rural suburb for most of my life, and then enjoy the peace and quiet. And I think having both makes you, in some way, makes you appreciate and be able to tolerate both. Because you're never, and it's also just kind of an appreciation. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, wow, I could go into the city. I could have a job doing what I love to do, working in entertainment. I could be around the big buildings. And again, like the energy of the city and enjoying that. And then I could kind of come home to a pretty rural drive, quiet, could hear a pin drop. And then the next day, spend a weekend at home, and then the next week go into work and just kind of do that. And that kind of cycle makes you kind of appreciate having both things. Whereas if I spent any meaningful time in the city, I might not love it as much. In fact, my personality, I probably wouldn't. I would probably grow tired of that pretty quickly. I do sometimes think, though, like if I think of certain cities like Philly and then certain neighborhoods, like if I think of Philly, specifically for people who know Philly, right? Like the east side of Broad Street down to Front Street, like down to the Delaware River, and then maybe the span of Walnut down to South Street, like that neighborhood, those blocks it's a beautiful place to live, very expensive, but really beautiful. Sometimes I could see myself living there for the saturation of culture, the walkability, your access to restaurants and bars and coffee and parks and museums, and just being able to get to all those things, you know what I mean? And being like a rich cultural center of having, like, Philly's not quite New York, but having some of the best things at your fingertips, no matter what you love. There's something really appealing about that to me still. And I wonder,
well, Dave, let me ask you something real quick, Dave.
Yeah, sure, of course.
But isn't Philly a great example, no offense, of urban decay? Like Philadelphia's in horrible shape, right? Like,
yeah, but you never see it from the neighborhood I just described. You don't even know what's going on. It's so, because I think in Philly now there's a big cleanup plan, because you're talking about Kensington specifically, and it's always been something. It's been West Philly, it's been parts of North Philly in the past. Kensington, I think the conspiracy theory, which proves to be pretty true, I think, is that they were keeping it sort of blockaded into that neighborhood on purpose so it wouldn't come out. So in other words, not doing anything in that zombie apocalypse part of Philly, but keeping it contained. Now there's some multi-billion dollar plan to go in and help it. But the idea was to keep it there.
Because I see shit in cities, like you see shots of Philly or San Francisco or New York, whatever, or like these videos. And you see things where I'm like, how is this even allowed to happen at all? Like, where it's like you need a plan. It's like, what is going on here? Like, this shouldn't be happening at all.
Yep. That's so shitty, dude.
This needs to be collected now. You don't need like a plan of action and all that. Like, get out here and fix this now. This is supposed to be a fucking first world country. This is the original capital city of the United States.
The wound is festering, by the way. Like, it's getting worse. So as every day goes, it's getting harder and harder to deal with. Right. But I do think that was always the underlying thing, was like, well, just keep it over there, because the up and coming gentrified neighborhoods like Manayunk and Fishtown or Center City, where the real money, the old money lives, like they don't want it near them. And in Philly, they do sort of cast that magic trick of making you realize, like, when you go into Philly and you're like, it's perfectly fine here. That's because you can't see it, because that's not where the museums are. That's not where the restaurants are. That's not where their, Philly's Broadway is. That's not where their Wall Street is. It's in a different part of town, and it's not seen from, and you could come in and out. By the way, you could commute by train or by car and still never see Kensington. It's very convenient. So,
Mrs.
and I know
Kensington.
Mrs. Kensington. Austin, it's Ms. Kensington. We had to. Every time you talk about Kensington, you have to do a little Austin pass. But yeah, and I know every city has its Kensington, and it's sad. It sucks. But like when I do love being in the suburbs, but it's that trade-off of being able to have, I have the benefit of always having worked in New York, almost always. So, you know what I mean? It's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So I get all flavors, which is cool. I think the way it's going to end up for me and Helene, though, interestingly, is that it's going to culminate in us living in a particularly bucolic southern city that feels more like a suburb, like Charleston or Savannah. You know what I mean? On the water, something that's is a city, but not a proper city like we're used to in the Northeast. So it's kind of having everything I just mentioned. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's scenic, but it's also, you have the restaurants, you have the museums, you have culture, you have an eclectic mix of people. The only thing is that I get weirded out by is it's not diverse socioeconomically, like where like I think the Northeast in general. You know what I mean? I'm not saying the neighborhood where there's poor people in the neighborhood I live in, but there's certainly very blue collar people within spitting distance of, 3 or 4 miles from here. And we grew up in a place that was very mixed that way. And I think feeling in a city where everybody, at least in a certain mile radius, is doing okay, that's going to be weird for me, because I'm used to a mix of people in all ways, including, the blue collar and the white collar, not just racially, not just religiously, but in everything. So, but I think that's the way to have it all. You know what I mean? Helene's on the same page with that too, where it's like, just move to a quieter city, I guess really was what it comes down to,
What do you guys have to say about this, Dustin? Suburbs, yay? Nay?
Yeah. Well, I've only lived in the same town that I have my whole life, of course. And there was a time where I thought I might live in a city. And that's kind of the trap, is that if you want to do certain things for your career, then, pre-COVID, it was kind of the only option. If I wanted to work in games media, and this was, there were influencer style YouTubers at the time, but it wasn't quite where it was when I kind of started on this path in 2014, 15. So there was almost a situation where I moved to San Francisco, and I always think, like, in hindsight now, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't happen. Just talking about like mortgages and stuff, like my mortgage for my whole house is under $1,000 a month. So it's we don't have like any kind of crazy house by any means. Our house was like partially built in the 1890s or something. And so, and it's not super big or anything like that, but yeah, having that freedom is awesome. And the other thing too is just the idea of having your own space, particularly when you're married. Like so many people living, and Colin, you did this for years, like living with another couple. I don't think I could ever imagine myself doing that at this point. And I don't know, it sucks because I like cities and I love visiting cities, so I want them to exist and thrive, obviously, but at the same time, it's like I'm thankful for the people that are biting the bullet and living there and suffering, I guess, because that's how these cities exist for me to go visit. Like Pittsburgh, it's always been a perfect situation for us here because we can get to Pittsburgh in 55 minutes from where I live. So we have, like Dagan was saying, we can go and experience that any day we want. For a long time, I mean, even Holly, she was in the like most prestigious choir in Pittsburgh, and she could do that from living from home because she just had to commute, an hour to go there, and she got to perform with the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra and stuff like that. So living in the suburbs has been the best of both worlds for me. And at this point, I don't think I could ever really live in a city, like particularly like New York and stuff like that. It's cool, but the only city that I could see myself living in, and I'm exposing my weeb card here, but is when I was in Tokyo. Legitimately. And it's, obviously there's so many things relevant to my interests in Tokyo, yes. But like all the things that are total turnoffs about major cities to me were not present in Tokyo. It felt extremely safe. It was extremely clean. The public transportation was amazing and affordable. I know. All of these different things. It makes sense why there's so many content creators and YouTubers, particularly if you're making USD and you go and live in Japan, you will live like a king. So that's why, it makes sense why so many people are doing it, just because it's just, you can have really the best of all worlds there if you're in that situation. Obviously, Tokyo and Japan isn't perfect, particularly culturally, man. Like the working scenario there, if you are working for a Japanese company, does not sound ideal. People literally work themselves to death there.
People also make no money. Like I didn't realize this, but when we see these stories of like, oh, Bandai Namco gives everyone a 20% raise, right? Like I was reading, we talked about this on the show, that like these people are starting out of college at like $25,000 a year, something like that at those companies, which is like not a salary you would get at any game company in the United States, like not even close.
Right.
So you might start in like the 50s or something at every other game company in the United States. So it's It is tough there. Like, and dude, the parity, like they have horrible exchange rates, and they've been suffering from like a stagnant economy for 30 years. Cause they used to call it, didn't they just call it the Japanese miracle or something? And then they just stopped growing. And they have a dangerously aging society with very few people underneath, and they're going to be in demographic collapse. Sorry to be so Malthusian, but it's true.
Yeah, I think they're not having kids.
Yeah, no one's having kids. It's too late. Like that's the whole thing. I've been reading that. Or listening to these people on like Lex and all these different podcasts where they're like, it's too late. Like the countries that are going to be in decline, or there's nothing they can do now. It's over. And they say China is one of those countries, which is why they're not really a long-term threat, because they're just going to contract in population pretty rapidly and have a very old population. And it's one of the reasons why the United States should embrace some level of immigration, because we're one of the few countries that is not in demographic collapse, because we do allow immigrants in.
Right. Well, that's the thing in Japan. The big debate there is about immigrating there is very difficult. And there's a lot of proponents like, hey, maybe it won't fix this issue with the aging population and our birth rate, but it will certainly help a lot if it was easier for people to move and live here. So, but yeah,
young weebs like you helping them pay their pensioners.
That's right.
Yeah, so you can go to fucking Dragon Quest cafes,
fueling the economy. Yeah,
Dragon Quest Cafe, Maid Cafe. I kind of regret not going to the Maid Cafe. I feel like it would have been quite an experience, but I just couldn't. Yeah, I even felt uncomfortable by the maids out because they're like out handing flyers and stuff. They're targeting 30-year-old white dudes like me, specifically in Japan. They're like, oh, it's like, nah, I'm good. But so yeah, I'm perfectly fine living in Butler. And the last thing I'll say, what the most annoying, I mean, there are many annoying things about living anywhere, but one thing that bothers me in particular in Butler is that many people that live here have lived there their whole lives, and they do not travel very much, and they will never live anywhere else. So there is often a feeling amongst people like, oh, this place sucks. There's drug addicts everywhere. It's dirty. It's not safe. And as someone who has traveled a decent amount, it is so painfully stupid how ignorant some of these people are, saying, oh, you can't walk around here. I'm like, dude, I've walked around some places in Los Angeles trying to save some money on an Uber, and I felt truly fearful for my life in a few instances. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple places around town I wouldn't want to be at 2 a.m, particularly if I was a female, but it's a big deal. It's a news report if someone gets robbed around here. It doesn't happen very often. It's and the drug thing too. It's like, I've never seen someone strung out in the middle of the street here ever.
That's the kind of thing. That's what I love about suburbs, is like that kind of shit obviously happens in my town, but we just don't see it. And the powers that be would never let you see it because it's supposed to be like some sort of semblance of order,
Right. Yeah. Right. So that's the thing. I'm always preaching to people here that I'm like, this is a great place. It's a great place to live. And we have a lot of things here that, the things you need, like grocery stores and fun things to do and stuff like that in a city close. And it's like, it's truly not as bad. Get out a little bit and experience something else to truly know, it's not a grass is greener situation necessarily.
Little Chris, Colin, Dustin, Furman is going to be going to the same schools you went to, right?
Yeah. He'll be born in the same hospital that I was born in as well. So,
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. Pretty
Full
interesting.
Circle.
All right. Brad, we haven't heard from you. Yay or nay? Are you a suburb protector?
Yes, I am. Suburbs are very nice, especially as I've gotten older. Cities are cool. I luckily got to spend a lot of time in cities because some of my friends lived in cities. So I got to experience some of it, but not have to live in it. And I'm very thankful for all that stuff. I think the cities are fun to visit, but I just wouldn't want to live there, man. Everything just feels like a fucking hassle. And I don't want to deal with that. Noisy neighbors and shit. I don't want to deal with that. I would be so mad. And just having your own little space, I feel like I can go outside and just feel peace for a little bit. So that's something I definitely want to keep. And like raising a family, I wouldn't really want to raise a family in a city. I want the kids to be able to go out there and live the kind of life like I did when I was a kid, because it was awesome. So that's what I would want. So cities are cool, but no, I'll stick to suburbs.
I wonder about people raising families in cities. Like I look at families, young families in New York, and obviously you have to make a lot of money even to be able to raise a family in Manhattan, obviously nowadays. But I do wonder about how different that is for kids, for their school experience, for their living experience, friends.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't be something I would want to do, but yeah, that's what you're born into. And so and I'm sure it's great. Depending on where you are, it can be awesome. Are you gonna, you live with your parents, right, Brad? In your parents' house?
I have like a side, our own back area.
Nice.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Are you going to inherit the house, do you think?
Me and my brother will, yeah.
Yeah. So you're like,
because it's just us two.
You're like our uncle and aunts, like our uncle's brother lived with his parents, like their parents on Long Island, like waiting them out basically for so long that it became so egregious. And he finally succeeded in adopting that house. Shout out to him.
Yeah, they both almost lived to 100.
Yeah, like he was like, it was like the king waiting for Queen Elizabeth to die. Like we were just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting.
Well, I just don't want to, like, I have it so good because like I have like my own basically apartment thing, and they don't charge me any rent or anything like that. Nice. So I'm just like, I have enough money to buy a house in different state. Just not where I'm at right now. Yeah, I don't want to rent.
No, there's no reason for you to change. I feel like a
chump renting.
If you are happy with your status quo, first of all, it was traditional for families to stay together like this. I don't know why, like Asian culture and other cultures, Indian culture, they adopt it a lot easier in the West. But it's like there's something about like people have to leave and they have to be gone. It's like, no, I actually think I did that because I wanted to do whatever I wanted to do, and no one was telling me not to, and I didn't really have a normal family anyway, to be honest. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, I got to stay near my parents. It's like my parents were like hundreds of miles away and didn't talk to each other. So I feel like if you get along with your family, if you get something out of each other, like positive in your lives, and all that, like I feel like it's good to stay close. Well, like I'm pretty jealous of my I live near my mom, which is awesome. I'm pretty jealous of my friend Mike Pope, who comes up. He's my best friend from Long Island growing up, and he still lives in our hometown. And I'm like, it's so, when I talk to him on the phone every so often, it's like, it's so quaint. He's telling me all these stories about these people and these things. And I'm like, you've never left, and that's like, there's something romantic about that to me, where I'm like, that's it's like a sitcom.
Even if I left, my parents would just follow us wherever me and my brother are.
See, that's awesome, dude.
They just want to be near us.
Our parents pushed us out of the house.
No. My parents, they want us to soar, but they don't, they're like, we want to be near you guys. They don't want to like be apart from us. And it's great because me and my brother get along really great with our parents. So it's no problem for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be that way with my kids. Like, I just want to always be near them. Our parents were very much, like, I'm not saying our parents didn't love us, but they were very much, especially with the two oldest, myself and our sister Dana, like, they were definitely like, you guys are out. Like, you're 20. What the fuck are you still doing here? Like, like that. Like get it. And it was always done with at least under the guise of being like, spread your wings. Like, you got to be independent, but they were just done. I can't see, being a dad of two teenagers, I can't see being like that. It's like, come back. I would love to have them living with me, like two little Brads running around. Come on. I'm in the state now. I think a lot of parents go through this where you fear that empty nest. Like they're going to go. It's bad enough to have to go to college,
Yeah.
So I get it. I get your parents. I think that's awesome. Shout out to your parents. Are you the oldest of the two brothers?
No, I'm the youngest. My brother's 2 years older than me.
Okay. So you guys are close.
Yeah.
In age.
We're close. Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Does he ever do anything like podcasts or anything like that? I think I've asked you this before.
No, he's a dentist. Well, he's in school to be an endodontist now. He's almost done, which is like all root canal stuff.
Nice.
But he's not like super into gaming. He was when we were younger, but not really so much
Just
anymore.
A family lore podcast would be interesting. We love family lore.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, I would love to get him on something. I should ask him one time.
Should. That'd be fun.
Is your dad a dentist, Brad?
No.
Oh, I wonder, how did your brother come to dental arts?
It's so weird. It was it was so weird. He was one of those kids who knew very early on what he always wanted to do.
That's so cool.
Like very early, as long as I can remember. I don't know. I think maybe when he had braces when he was like 12 or something, got him interested in that. like all the teeth and everything. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure where he really got it.
Dude, be nice to him. He's going to be very wealthy.
Oh, yeah. Me and my brother get along great. Yeah, we're awesome.
You want to get a little bit of that windfall.
He owes me big time. I've helped his ass out so many times with moving and shit.
Nice. You're going to call in super. You get a car at least.
Oh, yeah. Bet your ass.
Dude, that's so...
He owes me.
I love it. I can't think of... I don't know why this could be the animator in me, but I cannot think of dentists without thinking of Hermie from the Rudolph
That's
Christmas
what I used to
special.
call him. I used to call him Hermie.
I'm glad that he's aware of her. You know what I would love for your brother? If he did an opposite Hermie. If he always wanted to be a dentist and then decided last minute to be a toy maker.
That would be interesting.
The reverse.
That would be cool.
The reverse.
That would be wild. Yeah. That would be wild.
Well, I'm satiated on my topic, so I leave it to you.
All right, I'm glad you're satisfied. You got your glove out, slap me in the face, challenge me to a duel. Won the duel, and now you're satisfied.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, I've gotten satisfaction is what you're saying.
I was like, are you guys going to duel? That'd be cool.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Maybe a duel in the future.
Street Fighter.
Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you, Brad, earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you main in Street Fighter Alpha 2?
Usually Ken now.
Oh, he's
growing up. I was usually a Ryu kid growing up, but something about
me too.
Ken, I just got older. I don't know. It's weird.
Very funny. That's the same path I took as well. At some point, I was like, I like America more. I want Ken.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think Ken just looked really sick in like the Alpha games and stuff, like his long hair and everything.
Yeah,
the kick specials. Yeah, it's cool.
Like, is that teenage Ken? Young Ken just has more flash.
Shout out to Rolento, though.
Yeah.
I love Rolento.
Yeah, you did play Rolento.
Yeah, I was pretty good with Rolento. Yeah.
He's tough.
Yeah. You'd be like, he'd do like the snap thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of his moves is so stupid.
Did you like him because he looked like a G.I. Joe character?
Yeah, probably.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely looks like Lieutenant Hawk or Falcon rather or something like that. Or
yeah, one of the classic dudes.
Yeah.
Straight armed characters. Well, listen, you guys, that's another constellation in the books. Everybody, some might even say 4 the record books. Not many, but some would say that. I had a great time reflecting on our latest live event, among other things. A special thank you to those of you who made it out for the NYC show. Let me throw it around the bases to my other squares here for parting shots and see you laters. Dust, peace out, my friend.
Goodbye. I have a perfect evening lining up here. Holly, while we were recording, she said, hey, can we get Chinese food tonight? Yes, absolutely. Getting Chinese food. 2, I'm going to play Balatro, the rogue poker game. I'm obsessed with it. And it's bad. It's very, very addicting. Highly recommend it. Last but not least, One Piece on the docket. Those 3 things, I think I got the holy trinity for a Friday night here.
Yeah.
So
I'm jealous. Dust.
But yeah, I had a great time with you guys as always. And Dag, we missed you on Punching Up. You know,
I miss doing it. I can't wait. That episode's up already.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I have to watch it. Look at you, man, reaping the benefits of the pregnant wife's appetite.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You
absolutely.
have to.
Yeah.
Dude, ride this train into the station. You're gonna enjoy it.
Sucks. She hasn't had very many cravings overall. It's more she's got the bad side where it's like she'll smell something and be like, ugh, like can't like she was sitting. We had people over for Easter and there was like a plate of cookies, and the next morning she was sitting there and she's like, oh, all I smell is sugar from the other room, and it's just this plate of cookies many feet away. Like, I don't know what's going on with you.
Damn.
But
They just turn into these other creatures.
yeah,
It's so crazy. But that's the one benefit. You know, that she's going to have those appetite late night. You might have to drive out for some little Taco Bell or something. But you'll enjoy all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. Now, Mr. Brad Ellis,
Yo.
I bid you a fond farewell, my friend, until we meet again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm going to eat some tacos, then play some Dragon's Dogma and Alone in the Dark. So I'm very pumped.
Alone in the Dark. Are you liking it?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Yes and no.
Jury's still out.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, it was good having you on, Brad.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting
I
me.
enjoyed it. Colin. Is that weird? I feel like that's weird when I don't say Col or C. I just
You don't really call me that.
Sounds like I'm mad at you.
Yeah.
Right?
Colin.
If you say
Dagan,
the whole
Dana, Alley,
name, if I
Colin.
hear Dagan, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Listen, in any event, farewell, my friend.
Yeah, fare thee well. And this weekend, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. We have to record Knockback tomorrow. We have to talk about what we're going to do. I have an idea for that. And then...
or Rebirth.
Rebirth is what I'm going to be playing. So, like, I want to play Balatro. A lot of people have been recommending it to me, and we talked about it on the show, and then I got more recommendations even after that show happened, where it's like, yeah, it really is your kind of game. I believe you. And
Don't start it now.
I want to play Pacific Drive and do all these other things. I just need to focus. I like beating the games I play. I'm not one of these guys that's just like a mercenary. I beat the games that I play with rare exception. So I want to just focus on one game at a time. And I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's awesome, but I am playing it very meticulously. Like I've just gotten through the second area of and I've done everything in both areas, like everything that there is to do in both of them. So that's how I'm kind of playing it. And good. And it's fun. So yeah, I'll stick with it. That's what I'll be doing this weekend. Going out to dinner tonight, probably take the dogs for a walk right now. And I don't know, smoke a weekend joint as well.
Ooh, nice.
So that's it. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm jealous of all your plans. As I said to you guys in between our recordings today, I have a job interview. Yes, I just got a job. But I figured I would just see this interview through as a backup plan. It's the OCD of an animator, man. It's smart. It's unexplainable. It's crazy.
It's not unexplainable. Yeah. You should always be keeping an eye on your professional situation if something
arises.
You
think so?
Yeah, I don't think you want to be that. I'm always skeptical of people that jump from job to job to job, but you and I've always judged those people in my career, but you're not one of those people. You were at the same place for a long ass time, and then things became unstable, so
yeah,
I think you got to find the new right spot for you. And so I don't think there's any shame in doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel a little less crazy. Still crazy, but a little.
If they let you work remotely, like that's an automatic win, right? I mean,
yeah, the remote thing is big. The remote thing is really big. Yeah. And as I told Dustin, I was applying to, I won't say what it is. I don't know if I ever mentioned it on air. I've been applying to a very sought after place that's actually located in Pittsburgh. I don't think a lot of people realize this place is in Pittsburgh.
I didn't.
But yeah. I don't understand what the problem is. It's like it's like, why aren't you hiring me? It's getting to be like that. But I can't really move to Pittsburgh. So it's it's for Brad, for context, it's 6 hours from me. It's across the entire state of Pennsylvania. So anyway, listen, you guys, that's a wrap. Constellation fans, thanks so much for joining in on the hot conversational action today. We hope you're satisfied. Just a reminder, patreon.com/laststandmedia for some early ad-free access to Constellation and the other less important shows. Step up your fit with some fresh LSM gear at laststandmedia.store. Thanks again for Colin, Dustin, and Big Bad Brad. I'm Dagan, still the Dagster. Moriarty, signing off. Goodbye.
Constellation is a product of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show was conceived by and is directed and hosted by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is my brother, Dagan Moriarty. The show is produced by Last Stand's executive producer, Dustin Furman, and is edited by associate producer, Ben Smith. All Last Stand theme music is by Ramon Narvaez, and all of our graphics and logos are by Dagan Moriarty. As you know, all of Last Stand Media's podcasts, including Constellation, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest support tier, and we're infinitely grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor.